First, there was Dueling Citizens, now Secrets from the Inside. Author Greg Meakin nails it again. Introducing Secrets from the Inside Radio Show. Raw, unscripted, uncensored, uncanceled. Secrets from the Inside starts now. With your hosts, Greg Meakin, Val Olson, and Captain James McCormick.
Obviously, we have Val Olson. We're sitting around the diner. We're in the diner today, Chris. But, we have Val Olson. We have yours truly, Greg Meakin. We have the legendary Chris Scott, and the also legendary Gordon Kesler here, Chris. We got L. Gordon Kesler here. I'm going to, if okay, I'm going to turn the mic back to you, Val. If you can make sure everybody's coordinated sound-wise, both Chris and Gordon, and then if so, we'll just be off to the races and do a broadcast here. Lots of suspicious stuff going on behind the scenes, but that's not a surprise. And yes, Val, you're right. They will not shut us up. How about that? So I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, Secrets from the Inside, episode 0014. I would love to play the intro in just a minute. I just want to welcome all of our guests. L. Gordon Kesler, my favorite MLA to ever work in the Alberta legislature. He is where I go when I want facts and truth. He doesn't hold back. Such a big fan of Gordon. Thrilled he could be here today. And legendary Chris Scott, who I've been following for years. And he owns the Whistle Stop Cafe, and it's like probably one of the most famous spots on the map in Alberta. So we're thrilled Chris can be here today. Remember, when you want to speak, you just need to unmute yourself, okay? Outside of that, that's pretty much it. Don't forget, unmute yourself when you're ready to talk. And this is Secrets from the Inside, episode 0014.
First, there was Dueling Citizens, now Secrets from the Inside. Author Greg Meakin nails it again. Introducing Secrets from the Inside Radio Show. Raw, unscripted, uncensored, uncanceled. Secrets from the Inside starts now. With your hosts, Greg Meakin, Val Olson, and Captain James McCormick.
Greg, the floor is yours.
I love that. That's a little bit of an exclusive. That is Chris Branham, who's the voiceover specialist. He did the intro for this, and he did a number of other intros. And he's absolutely fabulous. He's out of Wisconsin, and one of these days, Val, I'm going to have Chris do it live for us. But that is the intro that officially goes on the beginning of the show when I replatform it on YouTube. And Chris is absolutely fabulous. And speaking of Chris's goodness, let's do a quick little sound check. Mr. Chris Scott, looks like you're a speaker. Can you hear us okay? And can we hear you okay?
I can hear you okay, and I'm assuming you can hear me.
Oh my God, let me pinch myself, Chris. Let me pinch myself. I can hear you beautifully. I'll tell you what, I don't know if you heard this or not. We had some major technical issues. Imagine that.
Yeah, it happens on X all the time.
I'm going to take the mic here for a quick minute. It's so thrilling to hear you on, and it's been really good to actually just kind of follow you and get to know you a little bit. Anyone up there in Canada, as we say, especially Alberta, knows Chris Scott and the Whistle Stop Cafe up there. I won't hog the mic too much. I'm going to turn it to you, Chris, and let's just take a nice little relaxed, maybe even 4 or 5 minutes here to begin the show. We'll let you chat. As I say, we're going to have a number of people listening, and as we speak, we've got Gordon Kesler on here. So if Gordy Kesler is on, it's already a legendary show. You know what I mean? So take the mic a little bit. Let us know who you are. And as I might have mentioned to you, the Secrets from the Inside radio show is all about secrets. It's all about inside scoop. And before you even introduce yourself, I'd like you to, I don't know if you have your ticket pass here, your train ticket, but that's a secret. You got to tell us a little secret about you, something you've never said publicly or whatever, and then Val will let you on the train and we'll begin chatting. Go for it, Chris. Turning it over to you. Let's have some fun. Let's have some conversation. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to have you here. It's going to be great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not really big on secrets. My life has been kind of an open book for like the last 4 years, for better or for worse. So yeah, I you know what, I wouldn't even know what to say. I guess not many people know this about me, but here's my big secret. I can't think of any food that I don't like. That's a secret.
No, seriously?
Yeah.
Like anchovies?
No, love them.
Oh my God. See, that's a first. That's breaking news. That's an exclusive. I've never met anyone like that, Chris. Good for you, man.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead, introduce yourself. Take as long as you want, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Let us know who you are. The one fun thing about this show is we know there are huge issues, major issues. Just a lot of America and Canada is just a grease fire now, politically and stuff. So let's talk about that. But also, what a huge part of this show is, okay, so what do we do? What do we do to fix it? What are our positives moving forward and stuff? So I'll just turn it over to you. This is called long form radio. There might be even a number of people dropping in, but I'll turn the mic over to you, introduce you to all of our audience, and just take another, again, 3-5 minutes and go for it. Catch us up here.
sure. So my name's Chris Scott, and I own a restaurant, gas station, and convenience store, RV park called the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. And it's kind of interesting. I'll point it out right now. The definition of a whistle stop is a small, unimportant town along a railway. So that's kind of an ironic thing that the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta, ended up as international news. But anyway, yeah, I'm a nobody, honestly. I'm your average, everyday Albertan. I'm not short. I'm not tall. I'm kind of completely average. And I spent 20 years in the energy industry in the Alberta oil patch. And I got to a point where I was really upset with government policy interfering with my life all the time. We'd have a good few years, and then, something would happen and some politician would do something stupid, and we'd end up with our industry under attack, and I wouldn't be working very much. And I was sick of that. I was sick of the feast and famine. I was sick of government holding the strings to my prosperity and my future. So I decided, well, maybe I'll just buy this restaurant, convenience store, and just kind of do that and lay low and fly under the radar for the rest of my life, leave my kids some property, and all will be good. Well, I bought that restaurant in July of 2019. That was 6 months before the COVID restrictions. So, like the vast majority of other businesses, I went along to get along. I wore my stupid mask. I had hand sanitizer everywhere. We had bulletproof shower curtains in between the dining tables in the restaurant. Like we jumped through all the hoops. We shut down. We had dine in or takeout only from time to time, and this went on for about a year. Well, in December of 2020, our premier at the time, Jason Kenney, he went on a Facebook Live, and he apologized to business owners for deciding who was essential and who was non-essential. He said, "Oh, you guys are all essential. We're not going to do that to you again. Sorry about that." And I thought, man, this is awesome. This is the Jason Kenney that I voted for, right? So not even a week later, he went back on Facebook Live, and he said, "Yeah, our case counts and hospitalizations, ICU numbers are up again." And they've been putting the statistics on the newspaper every day. So we're going to have to close businesses again. And I was fuming mad. I had a conversation with my sister, who was my business partner. And I said, if they don't open restaurants back up in the month like they say they're going to, keeping in mind this was over Christmas, this happened, then I'm just going to open because I'm at the end of my rope here. Well, the month came and went, and our CMOH, Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dina Hinshaw, she went on the airwaves and she said, "Sorry, folks, but the case number or the hospitalizations haven't come down. We're gonna have to keep your business is closed for another week. And again, raging mad, but I was too scared to do anything about it. Now keep in mind, after this year of going through all this stuff, me, like probably most Canadians, realized that what the government was doing was a complete load of BS. It wasn't doing what they said it was going to do, and this pandemic that they were talking about that was going to kill everybody was not what they said it was either. So I already had that in my mind. Anyway, I went along to get along because who wants to stand up against the government? It's scary. And that week went by, and then Dina Hinshaw went back on the airwaves, and she said, yeah, sorry, folks, but we don't really know when we're going to open you again because, yeah, the hospitalizations are still up. There's still people in the ICU. Some people have colds, so just stay closed until further notice. And I said, nope, not happening. Flung the doors open to my cafe, and I said, no, this is bullshit. Everybody, you're free to come here and eat, and I'm not participating. Well, the response was mind-blowing. Everybody in Alberta, except for the people who literally thought the government was right about everything, came to my restaurant, and kind of the rest is history, I suppose. Maybe I'll you have any questions about that or anything like that?
Chris, boy, that's a nice broad brushstroke, my friend. That's awesome. Tell us real quick, what happened to you? I mean, just what happened. I've heard the stories, the doors chained and so forth, but just
Oh
go
yeah.
ahead and take a few minutes. It's nice to just really relax, settle in a little bit here. We've got some cool folks that are going to be dropping in. So just take a couple of minutes as well, Chris, because just to let folks appreciate what you went through, and go blow by blow if you want, but take again 3-5 minutes. Let folks know what happened to you, and also feel free to talk about the drive-in screen. Okay, that's the best story of the year. So go
Sure.
ahead, turning it back to you, Chris. Just take your time.
Well, for the drive-in, we're going to have to rewind a little ways. Throughout the year that we were doing everything we could to comply with the garbage restrictions that the government was imposing on us, we started to hear stories about, families being stuck at home, they're getting cabin fever, going stir crazy. And actually, if you look at the metrics and the statistics, at least from Alberta, I'm sure it's similar across the world, the instances of domestic violence were going up. Like there were some bad things happening throughout that period. And even in my own town, I heard stories about people, they weren't doing very good. They were just depressed and sad. And I started thinking about what can we do to follow the rules, but help people through this by doing something to get their minds off of this. And I came up with this idea of the drive-in movie screen. So I ordered a inflatable movie screen, a projector, and an FM transmitter from off Amazon. And I set this inflatable drive-in movie screen up on the roof of the Whistle Stop Cafe. And then I advertised, I said, hey, if your family wants something to do, I'm going to show some movies for free, like a drive-in. So you can come here, you can be social distance, whatever, follow all these stupid rules, but you can get out of the house and have some fun. And you can order takeout from my restaurant if you want, and we'll bring it right to your car. So all the boxes were checked for the rules that we had to follow. And we were 100% compliant. And the first movie night, we had maybe 6 or 7 cars there. The next movie night, there was probably 60 or 70 cars. So you have to remember that my town has 502 people at the last census. And my restaurant had a capacity at that time of 40 people. I've got some space there because it's a truck stop and I have a few acres of parking, whatever. But this business was never designed to accommodate hundreds of people. Anyway, hundreds of people showed up and it was a hit. And people were following the rules almost just on their own because that's just what we do. We follow the rules, right? But before the movies would play, I built this like an intro thing that kind of went over the rules. Make sure you physically distance, make sure you use your sanitizer. If you're lining up to get stuff out of the store, which you're allowed to because we're a gas station essential, then you need to make sure you're spaced, make sure you're wearing your mask, all of those things that the government told us to do. And people did it. It was surprising how easy it was to do this with and have people follow the rules. Anyway, Alberta Health Services caught wind of this, probably from a phone call from somebody in town who doesn't like me. And they phoned me and they said, well, you have to shut this down. I said, why? We're following all the rules. They said, well, you have to shut it down because we don't have a set of rules for that. I said, what do you mean you don't have a set of rules for that? The rules are literally right here. We're following all of them. Yeah, but we don't have anything specifically for a drive-in movie and a concession. And so the fight was on. I posted this on my Facebook. People rallied around me. The entire province of Alberta phoned, wrote letters, emailed Alberta Health Services, telling them how ridiculous their rules were, and we were following the rules. The story was picked up nationally. It was ran in the National Post and a couple other Canadian newspapers. I was interviewed by most of the major mainstream outlets, and there was so much pressure, it actually forced AHS, Alberta Health Services, to get in a room with the police representative, the fire people, like the county, all sorts of people. They spent tens of thousands of dollars getting all these people in a room together in order to churn out a set of rules specifically for my operation. And then within a week, they phoned me and said, okay, well, you can open, but you have to do these things. And I'm like, we already do those things. And then they said, okay, well, then you can't let anyone use the washroom. I said, that's ridiculous. You expect me to tell people to just, what am I supposed to tell them, to pee on a tree? Sounds very healthy. Way to go, AHS. Anyway, we got along with the new rules. We won that battle, and it was quite the hit. After that, we saw drive-in movie screens pop up all over Alberta, and actually there was a bit of a drive-in revival because that's really the only thing people could do. So that was a really neat win to see people being able to do things again with their families and enjoy their time together, not being stuck in their house. And we did it by following the rules. So that's the story of the drive-in movie screen, which I still have, by the way. Now, regarding what happened to me after I opened my restaurant, first thing I'll say is the main reason that I opened against the restrictions was because I was in financial dire straits. After a year of being closed, you can imagine what that does to any business, let alone a little tiny restaurant. And I had a choice. I could either roll over and die, or I could fight the government. And of course, like the good Irishman I am, I decided to fight the government. But I didn't do it because it was I didn't think it was like some righteous crusade for people's rights. I literally was just wanted to make sure that I could keep my business open. But an interesting thing happened, because apparently it wasn't just me who felt like or knew that what the government was doing was wrong. Apparently, there were millions of people from all over this country and all over the world, for that matter, who felt the same way as I did. So when they saw me stand up against what the government was doing, they rallied around me. And that was a blessing and a curse because, it was great to have all that business and support. But I also got something that I didn't anticipate. I got people sharing their stories with me. And at times, those stories were, heartbreaking to say the least. The one that stuck with me, and I'm never going to forget this story. Actually, the lady just messaged me on Facebook a little while ago. I got a phone call from someone in Saskatchewan, and they were telling me this story about how I can't remember if it was their dad or their brother, but one of their family members was living on their own, but they had some issues and they needed some help. So they had a worker that went and helped them with some day-to-day things. And because everyone was so scared of COVID, the workers just stopped going, and nobody bothered to pay attention to the consequence of this. Because at that time, if you recall, there was this crusade against COVID that nothing else mattered. It was flatten the curve at all costs, no matter how high the cost was. So in this case, the cost was this man dying, and he died because he had some sort of an issue with his bowel, and it was a treatable thing, like an easily treatable thing. But by the time somebody found him after this family member had been asking, hey, what's going on? I can't get a hold of him. What's happening? He was dead, slumped dead over his toilet. And then not long after that, another family member died in a similar situation. And I started thinking, like, oh my goodness, people have no idea what's occurring because of what the government's doing, because of their irresponsible handling of this. And so then it became a lot more personal, and it became no longer about my business. As a matter of fact, at one point I had to kind of have an little internal conversation with myself and decide that this fight was worth losing my business. And to be perfectly honest, I guess it's not really a secret because I've said it before, but some people don't know. When I opened my doors and decided to stay open, I had decided and accepted that my business and my livelihood and probably my future would be destroyed because I actually thought I was going to end up going to jail. Now the health inspector did throw me a bone in the first few days. He said, "Hey, I got a phone calls, people saying you have dine-in services. We're going to come check it out tomorrow. If we don't see anything, then it never happened and we're all good. So if you're just trying to make a point, then you've made your point and just close and whatever." And I said, "Sure, you can come in tomorrow and you can sit down and have lunch with everybody else." And they came and they issued me a bunch of papers. I still have the papers on the wall. They came with the police. At one point, they got the liquor board involved and they came and took my beer, just harassed me all the time, right? Giving me more pieces of paper that said that I had to appear before the crown or whatever. And they didn't give up. And eventually, this kind of culminated in they did something stupid again. Like I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but it was completely bonkers. And it wasn't something that actually affected me or my business. But I remember thinking one day, this has to stop. I'm going to throw the biggest protest that this province has ever seen. So I put the word out on social media. I rallied the troops. There were thousands of people ready to rock and roll. And so much so that Alberta Health Services actually went to a judge and they got an ex parte injunction against me. Now, that means that they didn't have me or my lawyer present. So, believe it or not, in Canada, a pseudo-governmental organization can go to a judge and get a judgment against you in a court of law without you being represented by anybody. That's a huge problem. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But anyway, they got this injunction. But here's the scary part. That injunction didn't just say Chris Scott and the Whistle Stop Cafe. It said Chris Scott, Whistle Stop Cafe, the previous name of the Whistle Stop before I bought it. Glenn Carrot, who was one of the Alberta 51 guys here in Alberta, and John and Jane Doe, Alberta. Every man, woman, and child in Alberta was subject and covered under this injunction. And the injunction said, you may not attend, incite, promote, or organize any illegal gatherings. And I said, I'm a Canadian. The only mechanism I have to fight back or stand up or speak out against bad government policy is my constitutional right to protest. So I'm going to protest. Now, I tried to kind of play the game a bit and I pulled the advertising down. I didn't tell people not to come. And it ended up that it was a cold day that in the summer, like one of the worst days of the summer. I think it was only 6 degrees, overcast, gloomy, muddy. I think there was some sleet involved, but still close to 3,000 people showed up at the Whistle Stop Cafe. And if you look on the internet, you can find pictures and videos of that day. It's insane. This town is 502 people, about 520 now, but the town grew that day by a factor of 6. There was no place to park a car. The entire town was just completely packed with people protesting these restrictions. And that protest resulted in my arrest. And I was charged with contempt of court because I protested in Canada. And I don't know if you want to take a little bite out of that or whatever, but that's maybe a good place to have a comment or two.
Crit, you've got to be kidding me. The John and Jane Doe, Alberta, that's absolutely insane. There was a big trend. There was a big trend down here in U.S. law, where yes, indeed, you wouldn't just sue the party involved, but you'd sue again. Let's say, especially with politicians, you never were able to quote personally sue a politician, but that became the trend down here, where if people wanted to go, after say a city council or whatever, and then they would put the names personally, privately of all the city council members. I cannot believe what I'm hearing as far as that suit against you, because then everything's contempt of court.
It
Everything
gets
you do.
worse.
Take again. This is going to be very cool. I'll take a quick break here. This is awesome, Chris. Just to catch everybody up, we had a little bit of a delayed start, so we have a couple of drop-in guests that we have. One, my dear friend James McCormick, Captain James McCormick, who will be logging on. We also have absolutely awesome guy Matt Cody, who is the founder. You'll love this guy, Chris. You're his new hero, Chris. Is Matt Cody, who is the founder and president of the Oil and Gas Workers of America. So he looked you up a little bit in your history and talking about some of the stories that you've been telling us. And you're his new hero, my friend. But as a matter of fact, I will turn this back to Val for a quick minute, have her do maybe, a quick summary of where we are and stuff. But then I want to get the mic very much back to you, Chris. I really want to hear some of the details that you went through behind the scenes, including, yes, indeed, my understanding is you were tossed in jail. So back to
Greg, this is Gordy. Can I interject?
Absolutely, Gordon Kesler. Go ahead.
He began his presentation by saying he's just an ordinary guy, and that he's not tall and he's not short. And he went through the litany of things to show us that he's an ordinary guy. We need more ordinary guys just like him. We need tens of thousands of ordinary guys. And he should have great big capital letters right beside his name that say Freedom Warrior, because he certainly is a freedom warrior, and we need more Chris's in the world. And so I applaud his tenacity and his willingness to go the extra mile to preserve his business and his family and his freedom.
Wow, that's that means a lot coming from you, Mr. Kesler. I mean, I've watched some of your stuff, and I'm well aware that you're one of the very few of our MLAs that actually stood up on behalf of this province, and you did it at a time when nobody else would. So that means the world coming from you.
Well, you're more than welcome. I'm serious about it. I'm just overwhelmed by your courage, and we just need more courageous people, and they could turn that whole situation around and get Alberta out of the dire situation that they're in. And thanks again.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you.
There's a fearlessness that those of you listening at home can hear, and that's really what it's all about. And I'm so thrilled that episode 14 is on the air. We are loud and proud here, and it's it's easier for me to broadcast on this side of freedom, where we still do have rights intact. And Greg, you asked for a secret earlier. That's kind of, that's the currency of the show. We're not afraid of anything. And there was a time, I'm 5'1.5", and I kind of tried out, did my thing in politics, and I had fear. Like, I could see what was going on, and I was scared. Like, I mean, a real fear. And my secret is I don't have that fear anymore. Okay, so when you can really look in the eye the bully and you are not afraid of the bully anymore, you realize that you are unstoppable, you're unlimited, and it turns out there's more people just like you around you. So that's not a big secret, but for me, it's a game changer because I see right to the core the dark, dark things that are happening in Alberta. And as many of you know, I'm an investigative journalist. I spent over 20 years in Alberta. You will still hear my name, you will still hear my voice all over the airwaves. And I know that province like the back of my hand, but I also know what's going on the inside. And I'm really in a seat of a really special seat today, just to be able to say there is nothing that's going on there that isn't going to come to the light. So so many of you are walking around and you feel like you can't speak up, or you better not speak out because it's going to be even worse and it's going to get worse. And so it's kind of like, doing a deal with the devil you can see. And we have to stop thinking like that. We have to start standing up and saying the truth, having hard conversations. And you might lose some friends, but you might gain some. And that's what it's going to take. So if you're listening to this broadcast, share it and speak up, because Alberta 51 is happening. And it's a powerful movement of fearless people. And it's caught the attention of some very, very important people, famous people. I've had conversations on this side, just even a famous movie producer. There's another secret for you. I actually was in contact with a movie producer who said, Val, um, we've talked about it, my wife and I, and if you wanted to do a movie trailer, Val, we're going to support you with that. Just to give people an idea, because it's going to take time to like get all of this stuff out. But my point is, Alberta is on the map all the way to Hollywood. I mean, there's a lot going on there crime wise. But you need to know, like, it's not a secret. There are not a lot of secrets, like whatever you want to take, people doing bad things. They're thinking they're getting away with it. They're actually not. Technology is just wonderful. And of course, shout out to all of our law enforcement who's listening. Um, I I'm so thankful for those of you that have had the courage year after year to stand up and not go along with things that go against your morals, and also your oath to serve and protect. There are so many of you, and it's just a privilege on the back end to see so many different agencies and people that are working together just to get through what we're going through right now on the right side of this. And it all comes down to human rights. And Alberta, don't forget, you have human rights. You are deserving of those God-given freedom and rights, just like everyone else on the planet. So don't forget that today.
Can I interject something there?
Of
It
course.
seems like a good place to bring this up, and then I'll get on with my stuff later. But you talk about Albertans having human rights, and let's expand that to Canadians having human rights. Of course we do, but there's something people need to understand. Our human rights are not something that any government gives us. We're born with them, and we're given those rights by God. That's it, period. Our government simply acknowledge that we already have those rights, and they acknowledge it on paper. We have a very, very serious problem in this province and in this country, because oftentimes, in order to access our human rights that we're born with, we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars proving that we should be allowed to live the way we're intended. For example, my legal fees that were all crowdfunded through the Democracy Fund and Rebel News. So thank you to our friends Ezra Levant and Sheila Gunn Reid and Adam Seuss and all them over at Rebel. They crowdfunded that for me, but my legal fees were like $350,000 to fight some tickets that I got from Alberta Health Services, which turned out to be illegal. But that's how much money had to be spent for me to claim those rights. It gets worse. I just talked to a man today. His name's Chris Lysak. He's been in jail in remand for 707 days. Today is his 50th birthday. He phoned me from jail. He phones me from time to time because I speak out about these guys every now and then. But this man is in jail as a result of the Coots blockade that happened during the time that the Ottawa convoy was happening. So Chris and 3 other men were arrested on or around February 9th to 13th, and they were charged with conspiracy to murder police officers. That was the charge. Now, it sounds really, really bad, right? The problem is, and I've been speaking about this on other channels, when you start digging into what's going on here and when you start looking at the evidence and the disclosure that's being provided by the RCMP and the Crown, that's the justification for keeping these men in jail with no bail, which is like unheard of in Canada. I mean, we kick murderers and rapists out in 3 days here in Canada because Justin Trudeau wants criminals on the street. But these men stood up and spoke out against bad government policy, which is the worst crime that you can possibly commit in this country, Canada. Speaking out and acting out against the government is a serious crime here in Canada, and it will keep you in jail for 2 years with no trial and no bail. The reason they're in remand, not even in prison, they're in like this limbo where it's the shittiest of the shitty holding cells and things like that, kind of like solitary confinement, is because the Crown is dragging their feet and and I think they're waiting to trigger something called it's based on the Jordan decision. Basically, in Canada, it says if you're in held for 30 months, then you can make an application to throw everything out, stay the charges, because it's the administration of justice is taking too long. But this is different with these men. So what happened was, if you recall, Canada and actually some of our U.S. friends sent millions of people to Ottawa to have a conversation with Justin Trudeau about vaccine mandates that were infringing on our human rights. They were unlawful. They were disgusting. It was all wrong. We wanted to talk to the government. Justin Trudeau got fake COVID and ran and hid, just like he does every time Canadians want to talk to him. Well, while we were on our way to Ottawa, and I did go to Ottawa, Justin Trudeau and his cabinet were talking about how they could use the Emergency Act to shut down the protests. Now, I know Mr. Kesler will remember this. His father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, he actually implemented the War Measures Act, it was called back then, to shut down the Oka situation. I think it was Oka, or no, pardon me, it was the FLQ crisis in Quebec. So, like father, like son, Justin Trudeau needed justification for this, and there is some rumor, some little whispers of collusion between the 3 branches of government here in Canada that suggests that our politicians on a federal level may have told the Crown and the RCMP what they needed to find. And then they went out and found them. So cabinet, our federal cabinet in this country, wanted to implement the Emergency Act so that they could shut down all these protesters, trample old ladies with horses, shoot female reporters with tear gas. We've all seen the videos. So they said, allegedly, hey, you know what, RCMP, you need to find these things. If you find these things, then we can use that to implement this act. So what did the RCMP do? They went to southern Alberta, where everybody has guns. They found people with guns, legally, lawful owned firearms. They put pictures of those guns on released it to the media. The Crown and the RCMP did this. The media put out this narrative that these 4 men were insurrectionists and these guns were all going to be used to try and start a war with the government or something, which was a false narrative. None of that stuff was ever the evidence was never put to test in court. They released it anyway. The court of public opinion said, oh, these guys are bad. Look at all these guns. It's so scary. They got a search warrant to go search the men's properties. They went and searched one of their properties in a town quite a ways from the blockade. This guy owned a dirt works and excavating company. They found homemade explosives, allegedly, in a shed in a box that were used by his dad when his dad owned the company to freeze stuck drill bits when they were quarrying for gravel. So they said, oh, these guys are making pipe bombs. They have these guns. They're going to shoot police officers. Went and arrested them. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau used that as the justification to enact the Emergencies Act and trample old ladies with horses in Ottawa. So you see how these things are all kind of tied together. And now these guys are sitting in jail, political prisoners, because the moment this evidence is put to the test, they're going to find, at least I'm 99% sure, they're going to find that this was all bogus, and the justification for the implementation of the Emergencies Act was never there. And our prime minister, the worst prime minister that this country has ever seen since his father, is responsible for the most infringements of not only our charter and constitutional rights, but he is responsible for putting the boot to human rights in this country as well. So that, I just wanted to throw that in there, and I want to let people know where Canada is on the status of human rights. And even, I don't know if it's worse or equally as bad, the media in this country, owned by the state, Canada subsidizes our mainstream media here to the tune of $1.8 billion per year. They do the government's bidding. They help them spin this narrative. And they have convinced a lot of Canadians that these infringements on our rights and freedoms, these forced vax mandates and policies that are obviously now they're harming and killing people, are not only acceptable, but those that speak out against it are bad Canadians. That's how bad things have gotten in Canada.
Chris, I'll tell you what. The War Measures Act, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Think January 6th. You're nailing the key issue here is that, and I pray the U.S. doesn't get to the point that you guys were up there. I mean, the freezing of bank accounts and stuff. But there's really big concerns down here. But as you say, it's all under the guise of an emergency. It was called the War Measures Act under Pierre Trudeau, and then the Emergencies Act under his son. And then January 6th was, I think, what it was called something like Orange Man Bad or something like that. It was called Orange Man Bad, January 6th legislation and all that craziness. So you're really touching on an important point. We have, to let everybody know, we have a drop-in guest today. I'm really excited. I hope she gets her mic lined up with Val. And I'll take a quick minute here. We have a person dropping in from London, England, everybody. London, England. REA BOW. REA BOW is amazing international radio host. I'll take a quick minute, guys, if we can. And REA hosts a show every Sunday morning. Val and I know about it because we are listeners. And at it's 4 a.m. my time when her show starts. So I won't get into time zone stuff there. But she runs a 4-hour. It's called Sunday Long Live Radio, guys. And I'll tell you what, it's the kind of stuff that we're listening to here, but really on an international scale. So REA BOW, I do hope she gets her mic hooked up here with the broadcast, because I'm going to turn it over to her when she is live. This broadcast today and the show today, this is really a universal theme. It's faith, family, freedom, or God, family, freedom, whichever choice. Freedom being what I really think the entire world is craving as we watch the news every day. And you're touching on it so deeply, Chris. I can't believe how great your story is about the Whistle Stop Cafe. And indeed, if you're able to hang for a while, Chris, I do want to hear. I do have a couple of questions still. But anyhow, I'll turn it over to Val here to coordinate things. I don't know if Rhea's set up or not, but I definitely want to give her the mic. Absolutely most phenomenal English accent you've ever heard. I love it. I love Rhea and her show, but bottom line, it's really, really edgy inside scoop stuff, just like this show. Go.
Okay,
Val,
I'm on
can I just
standby.
quickly interject?
Yes.
When Chris talked about the violation of human rights, and if you go back and search the records when I was in the legislature, that was one of the big things that I tried to point out to the people of Alberta, that anytime when the charter was being drafted and Peter Lougheed, the savior of Alberta, was eager to sign this charter, but the charter itself was a death sentence for freedom and freedom-loving Canadians, because the charter basically said that the only rights you will have are the rights that the government gives you. And so if the government gives you those rights, the government can take those rights away.
Bingo.
And specifically, we were talking about the lack of protection for private property. Well, everybody takes that to mean that, private property, we're talking about your house or your land, but private property means everything that you own, the shirt on your back, your anything, any personal belongings, the government could take away from you under the clause on property rights. And so people need to go in there and read that charter with an open mind and see how much power it gave the government and how it infringes on your human rights and your freedoms as Canadians and Albertans.
That is so true. We are just welcoming in REA. I'm just going to, REA, get you to unmute yourself, and the microphone is yours. As REA works on that, Greg, do you want to just jump in here?
Sure, yeah. God, I'm so excited to have REA trying to log in. She's sending you a mic request, but there might be technical issues on that side. Imagine that, Val. She's not able to click through mic requests so far. Why don't we have her continue to try that on our end? As I said, there have been, quote, questionable technical issues today. Val Olson and Chris Scott and Gordon Kesler and now REA BOW at least listening in. Been technical issues, which we'll probably question down the road, but we'll see indeed.
Okay,
There
we
we
are
go.
in business. We are in business. Here we go. REA, the floor is yours. All I need you to do is just unmute that little red microphone and you can speak.
It's funny, Val, because it might be the same issue. She's been trying to unmute, and I wonder if she is not unable on that side to do so. Interesting. Again, hang with us a little bit, folks. There's technical stuff. This is coming from London, England. So, hey, maybe the British Parliament wants to shut us down. We got the Canadian government, we got Ottawa, we got London. We're down here in the States broadcasting this, but goodness, you never, ever, ever know, do you? So, if you can work with Rhea on that. I know she's anxious to get on and stuff, but very, very quick. I do want to recognize someone who is there while we, again, it's been a drop into the diner. Captain James McCormick has been sitting in, wonderfully listening while we get Rhea set up and stuff. I just want to say hi to you, Captain McCormick. Captain McCormick is part.
Oh, howdy.
Goodness, there you are. Captain McCormick's from good old West Virginia. Okay, West Virginia. Imagine
Mhm.
wasn't it downtown West Virginia, James? But James,
It used to be part of Virginia, yeah.
I'm going to turn the mic to you very quickly while we get kind of technical
Sure.
on our issue over on this side. Captain James, folks who listen in here, he's a famous guy on our end. He's part of our little team in Arizona who is working diligently with from the United States side, eventually with U.S. Senate. To create an invitation from the U.S. Senate to invite Alberta to be the 51st state. James is also a triple Purple Heart guy. I won't get into your bio here, but there's so much online and available to let folks know who James is. If you would, James, take a minute or two, if you would just introduce yourself and stuff, and then we're going to be getting back to hopefully London, England, when Rhea is able to get on the line.
Sure.
So back to you. Take a couple of minutes here. We have Chris Scott, who's the owner of the Whistle Stop Cafe, and we have Gordy Kesler. We got
Yeah.
Gordy Kesler on as well,
Yeah.
James.
I know them
Go
both.
ahead, sir. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Take the mic.
All right, Greg, it's always good to be on here with you, buddy. To everybody that doesn't know me, I'm James McCormick. I have a radio show that runs every Friday night It's called Continue Mission. It runs for 2 hours, and that's Eastern Standard Time. You're looking at 10 p.m. to midnight. So, you know, you West Coasters, you can get on there at 7 o'clock and catch it. And you East Coasters, well, you got to stay up a little bit later and hold off on those gin and tonics until about 12:01, so you can really catch this show good. The whole thing about me is, look, I'm a retired Army officer, but I didn't start as an officer. I have been a private, a sergeant. You know, I mean, I've been at all the ranks up and down the line there. I became an officer later. The first Gulf War, Desert Storm, and then I fought again in Iraqi Freedom. I was an active participant, so I do not, I do not.
Captain James, you cut out on us.
Look, anytime that you start talking about, can you hear me okay?
You're
Let me
coming
see.
through now. Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Loud and clear. Licking chicken. That's what we called it. So essentially, anytime you get on these radio shows, isn't it fantastic? I could get on here and talk about some liberal leftist crap, and then you're absolutely never going to get any interference. But when you start talking about freedom and liberty, and you start talking about things that are important to the people, then it just seems like everybody has problems. And they get worse. You know, I mean, sometimes our radio show, which is, if you're on Blog Talk Radio, you can get our radio show in Canada usually. But in some cases, as Val can attest, our radio show has been blocked. You know, and I'm not sure what the problem is with that. We don't talk about anything violent at all. We talk about freedom and independence. And I love what's going on with the Alberta 51st movement because, look, this is about the basic fundamentals of human rights and human freedom. You know, when you can lock somebody up in jail and not even tell them why they're in jail and keep them in there, not just for days, but for years, you know, you don't have freedom. You do not have freedom when that happens. What you have is a case of tyranny, and we dealt with that in this country, obviously. And you know the history of the United States, and you know how we obtained our freedom. Now, I think we're in a position now where you can get your freedom, without firing a shot, but you can do it diplomatically, and that's everyone's hope. But you have to be courageous. You have to be willing to stand up to the bullies and the tyrants. And the bullies and the tyrants come in all shapes and sizes, folks. The internet's full of them. Anybody that speaks out for liberty and truth, especially if you talk about truth now, you will face all kinds of harassment, doxing, you know, where they try to get people to come to your house. And I always tell people, you're welcome to come down here in New Haven, West Virginia. But I guarantee you, you will not pull that crap here out in front of this house or our business or in this community because there's too many people here. You know, there was a song about don't try that in our small town. Well, this is a very small town, and this is a very freedom-loving town. And you have to be that way. You have to be able to come together as community. And you know, number one, we look out for each other. You know, we report crime. We stop crime. In some cases, we get involved with that stopping of crime. But in all cases, the people that truly are here living a righteous life and doing the right things and just living their life, doesn't matter how they believe or whatnot. It's, you know, they have the ability to be able to pretty much do anything that they want, you know, as long as it's not out, you know, killing somebody or robbing somebody. They have that freedom. So I feel very passionate about your freedom movement, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity to be on here. So I hope that you can hear everything I'm saying because sometimes it does break up. And again, I'm here in West Virginia and just living life. So God bless you and God bless the movement.
Captain James show on Continue Mission is on Friday nights alongside Rich Kilblane and Father Mike, and this is a show that caters to vets, those who have served their country. This is a life-saving radio show, spreading encouragement, spreading news, and giving hope out. And to have that banned in Canada, to have people not able to access a life-saving show specifically for our military community, that's a real asshole-ish thing to do. So whoever is turning the off button on that show, you really need to look in the mirror and, you know, ask yourself, why am I a part of this? Why would I be the one to do my part to keep a life-saving show of those who have served from the people? Yeah, so it's really sad. It's a great show. Check it out on Blog Talk Radio. And Greg, over to you.
Well, thank you, Val. Thank you, Val. Are you set up with the REA BOW?
Where is Greg Meakin? Where
Yeah.
is Greg Meakin?
Jay.
Where is he at?
True.
I invited Rhea to speak. So if she can unmute herself, I don't know if she's able to, but she is invited to speak.
Yeah, she's there. She's present and accounted for. I think there might be technical issues with her mic request. Imagine that. James McCormick, I want to shout out real quick to you. Very seriously, you have my favorite show in the world. Continue Mission, and as well as SLLR in London and stuff. And how fun it was. You guys every Friday night you do your show. And
how about? Can anybody hear me? Okay, Val, can you hear me? Because I don't know that I'm hearing anything.
Yes, James, we can hear you. James, can you hear me?
Yeah, is anybody speaking now? I hope I didn't speak over someone.
Greg, but it's okay. I can message Greg. Take the mic, James, and I'll let Greg know that you're going to speak. Go ahead, James.
Okay, great. So awesome. Look, I have been on radio shows where we've had technical difficulties, and it is a very uncomfortable place to be because you don't have a lot of control over that. So I'm sure everybody on here that's listening has been in that position. So listening to Chris speak about his plight and being jailed for exercising your rights to protest, essentially. So what's your thoughts on the reality of a peaceful transition from Alberta, the Canadian province, to Alberta, the 51st state of the United States? And what can we as Americans do besides writing our congressmen and senators? What can we do to help you in that movement?
Boy, am I ever glad you asked that question. But first of all, I got to say, thank you for your service. And I don't say that lightly. I know, like, people say that all the time, and I don't think they know what they're saying. What I mean is, if it wasn't for men like you and people that I'm sure that you probably lost people along the way, doing what they did and sticking their literal lives on the line for us, we would not have the opportunity to fight for our own freedoms. Like that's a common misconception that people have, is that people fought and died for our freedoms so that we wouldn't have to. No, you guys put your lives on the line and people died so that we would have the opportunity to continue fighting for our freedoms, maybe not with weapons, maybe just with words and the pen, right? So when I say that, I really mean it. Thank you.
You are very welcome, my friend. And we really appreciate it. And I just want to say this. I have worked with a lot of Canadians. So I had two Canadians that had dual citizenship that served with me. One served in Desert Storm, and he lives in Saskatchewan. And the other one served with me in this current war, and he lives over in the Newfoundland area now. So, there's a lot of Canadians and Americans that share the same passion for freedom, and we have fought in some of the same places. And when I hear these stories about, Justin Trudeau, in particular, who, he may be the illegitimate child of Fidel Castro. And there's a lot to that. But pushing forth this crippling socialist agenda, and hurting people. I mean, it's just, see, there's nothing good about that kind of thing. And so, yes, you're right. Hopefully we get a chance and we can fight this in the ballot box and not the cartridge box. And let's hope that we can continue to do that. And that's not a threat to anybody out there. That's just, people get tired. And at a certain point, when the government stops listening, the people have to speak louder in a tone that they can hear. Our very own president, Joe Biden, who probably will go down as the worst president in the history of America, Jimmy Carter is thankful of Joe Biden because he has now, been elevated to probably one of the better presidents in comparison to Joe Biden. But he made a threat to the American people. You want weapons, man, to stand up against the government, and you're going to need an F-16. And it was a very veiled, not really a veiled threat. It was a threat. It's like, okay, so you're going to say we need F-16s, we need B-1 bombers. That tells me that we have a president that has no problem sicking the military on the citizens of America. Wow. So that is something that we're going to fight in March when we go to the primary and we elect, we elect a representative to represent us as a Democrat and as a Republican. I'm a conservative. I come right out. I am a Donald Trump guy. So, I am a Make America Great Again guy, 100% all the way. So, obviously, I have my views on that. And in our state and our legislators and all of these people, we get a chance to choose. And I always tell people, you got to look for every little thing that they're involved in, because not just their past. Everybody has a past. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But what I'm talking about is the people that give them money. I promise you, if a person takes money from an organization that supports, check the box, whatever it is that you don't believe in, if they take money from an organization that has any affiliation with that, then understand they are bought and paid for by that organization. Yep. So in America, I don't know if you have that in Canada, but I just want to listen to what you have to say because I want to learn, because I really want to help you guys any way that I can. So what do you think? What do you think?
We have the same problem, and we see it really blatantly obvious with our media. Like I said before, the federal government in this country gives $1.8 billion of our taxpayer money to the state-controlled media. And the state media, in turn, does the bidding of the government. And that's really scary. You guys in the United States, you have something that we don't here. You have the right and arguably the responsibility to form a well-armed militia to prevent against government tyranny. The founding fathers, they knew what was up, and they knew that was important to have enshrined in the Constitution. What we have here in Canada is we have a Constitution that does not afford us that right, and it places our fates squarely in the hands of the courts which are have judges that are appointed by our federal government. So this is a really tricky situation we find ourselves in, and one of the reasons why those 4 men were arrested and are still jailed, because we are not allowed to stand up for ourselves in Canada. It's actually considered a form of treason here, whereas in the United States, it's considered a responsibility to stand up for yourself. I remember watching the news about that rancher in Montana that formed a posse and stood up to the feds when they tried to annex his land, and they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, that's your constitutional right. And by the way, federal government, you were wrong. Had that been Canada, the government would have came, done all the damage, taken the land, done their thing. 10 years down the road, maybe the rancher would have found out that he was right in the first place. But anyway, lives destroyed. So there is that. Now, regarding the Alberta 51, it's going to be a real tough sell to convince me that Alberta should be the 51st state. However, I'm not 100% opposed to the idea. And here's something you may not know. During this time, I also found myself ending up as the CEO of an educational organization called the Alberta Prosperity Project. Now, the Alberta Prosperity Project, our goal is to educate, inspire, and inform Albertans as to the benefits and the merits of Alberta independence. We, and Mr. Kesler, he can speak to this as well. The West has been at a disadvantage in this confederation in Canada since the very start. As a matter of fact, in 1904, Clifford Sifton, who was the Minister of the Interior at the time, he said in a speech, and I'm going to paraphrase, he said, us Easterners, us people, us Canadian patriots, we want the West to join this confederation so that the great trade of the prairies, meaning, you know, grain and lumber and that, can build up our factories here in the East and enrich our lives in every conceivable way. So the fix was in right from the very beginning. Hey, West, join Confederation so we can plunder your resources and tax you without you having proper representation. So, you know, Alberta needs a change, and it needs a very big change. And what I've found in the last 3-4 years is that almost all of the problems that we're facing in this province and actually we're facing in this country could be effectively dealt with if Alberta stood up and said, enough is enough. We're not going with you if you want to take this anti-human path. Now, the interesting part here is that the idea of becoming a 51st state, that would fall to the people of Alberta. We would have to decide that, right? But the thing that has to happen before that is we have to have a referendum to trigger what's called the Clarity Act. That's a piece of federal judge-made legislation. It's a Supreme Court piece of legislation that says that if there's a clear question presented in the form of a referendum with a clear answer, then that would trigger negotiations between the province and the federal government that may lead to secession. So step one, Alberta needs to stand up and say, if you guys want to go and you know, tax the air you breathe and freeze and starve in the dark because you want to villainize CO2 that feeds our plants and keeps us alive, you guys go ahead. We're not going to do it. We have to do that. And then we would have to be courted by the United States, and the United States would have to sell the idea of us becoming a state. The issue for me, I love the United States. The people are awesome. You know, I haven't had the opportunity to travel around to a lot of states, but everywhere I've gone, it's been amazing. I love that you guys are civically engaged when it comes to politics. I think in the United States, 60% of people hold a membership in a political party. In Canada, it's less than 3%. It's pathetic. So you guys are very passionate about your futures, and you get involved, which is good. But you mentioned Joe Biden. My goodness. I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for any American with a shred of common sense to be governed by a man who actually thinks it's a good idea to tell the people of America that if they want to stand up against the government, they better have F-16s. Tell them that he's going to shut in their oil and gas production in the name of some fairy tale ideology that has no benefit to humanity. Like, for me, I don't want to jump out of the frying pan into the fire. My biggest problem with Canada, or with Confederation problem, not Canada, I love Canada, I have a problem with Confederation, is that Alberta, if we stood with BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and we all said, no, Trudeau, we're not going to do this carbon tax thing. We're not going to go just transition away from our energy industry. We're going to have common sense. It wouldn't matter. We don't have the voice. We don't have the votes to change our path. If we became a 51st state, it would be the same problem, except for now we would only have 0.5% of the vote. So that'd be a very, very difficult thing for me to accept. But I mean, I guess I could be sold on the idea, and it would have to be negotiated. But step one, Alberta has to stand up, have a referendum, tell the federal government, we're negotiating these things, and if you don't fix what's wrong, we're leaving. That's step one. So if the United States, if Americans wanted to help Alberta stand up and do that, and by the way, we're not just standing up against a federal government here. The federal government's been unbalanced here for 117 years, but we're standing up against the idea that following anti-human policy is going to improve our future. That's what we're standing up against. We're fighting back against cancel culture. We're fighting back against the woke narrative. We're fighting back against critical race theory. We're fighting back against the insane climate climate lunacy that people are following. These are the things that we're standing up against, which is what I think most places in the world that are having these same kind of movements, they're standing up against it as well, right? So if America wants to help, you know, start talking about some of these things. Maybe I would love to be able to pitch the idea of what trade would look like between the United States and Alberta if Alberta was an independent nation. Could you imagine if Alberta was governed by responsible, common sense thinking people who would negotiate trade agreements with the United States that were beneficial to both, having reality at the core of the conversation? Man, it would be absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, now the federal government's responsible for international trade. So all of the trade talks are done by a man with, you know, fastly progressing dementia, Joe Biden, and a trust fund baby who has his head so far in the clouds he can't even see that his own country hates him. So
Okay, that's Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Alberta. Chris, your mic is cutting out just a teeny tiny bit, but you know, I think we heard all of that. In just a quick response, we're going to go into REA right away here. REA, I'll just get you to unmute your mic. I think it's, you know, hyper focusing on Alberta in particular, these men that are in jail that have not had access to a fair trial. There's no innocent until proven, or there's no guilty until proven. There's no innocent until proven guilty. They have not had their day in court. We're going on years of seeing them locked up in remand centers under a conservative premier in the province of Alberta. So you have a systemic problem with the entire government, Alberta or Canada. Your Canadian rights, your Alberta rights, it doesn't matter. It's not worth a lick. Just ask the men who are paying the price today. REA, I'm going to move over to you. Just take yourself on mute and the floor is yours.
Okay, guys, let me just see if this is working. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wow, look at that. I got
Wonderful.
there in the
Welcome.
end. I'm sort of trying to make a coffee and trying to get it to work. I don't use X, by the way. Hi, everybody. My name's REA BOW. I'm in from the UK. Hi from the UK to you all. What can I say? Greg invited me in, and Val and Greg listen to my show on a regular basis. I don't know if you want to run down, if you want me to do a me thing. I'm just sipping a coffee. I've just sat down, first time on X and using spaces and things like that. I don't know if you want me to contribute to what's already been said. I've sort of got half an ear out as to what's going on and what you've been speaking about, or I don't know where you want me to go from here. Give me a bit of direction, guys.
Okay, REA, I love your show, by the way. Every Sunday of the year, you can catch it on Sunday Long Live Radio. And REA, just take a minute, let everyone know who you are, and I want you to weigh in on what you've heard so far. Go ahead.
Okay, so we want a me thing. So my name's REA BOW. I do a show called Sunday Long Live Radio. It's been going around about 8 years. So I started on radio in New York, and they called me in to do a small segment on New York radio for economics. So I started there, and then they give me free flow with the format. So I started to format the show and move not just solely into US economics, but started to bridge out into other parts of the Americas, Canada, Central America, South America, then into Europe, and they quite liked that. And then I sort of they asked me to start formatting guests. So I started formatting guests for the hosts, and then they got me in, and I'm going to go as quick as I can. And then they asked me to do a co-host slot, and then from there I ended up as a host. sort of progressive thing. And then I moved into formatting, and then I went over to I got picked up by GCN. I was on GCN, if you've heard of those. And then from there we got the push, and then after that I formed my own radio network and my own show, and we syndicate out same old on online and to a few terrestrials in Europe, but none in the UK so far. So what can I say? I run a radio network, been going about 7 years, called WBN 324 Talk Radio. I'm a techie. I deal in HD audio, musician, and I deal in the privacy space, Web3, and I won't go too techie if that's any good to you. Does that work for you guys?
Yes, that is amazing. So you are seeing us drop on and off major censorship in communist overtaken Canada, because that's really what we're dealing with in a nutshell, Rhea. If you want to weigh in on what you've heard so far in this segment, because you've been around for probably about 30 minutes. So I think you have an idea of the conversation.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, like the vets listening and all that, big respect to you guys, and you guys that are aligned that way. Well, okay, nutshell. I think they want communism and call it democracy. Val and Greg will have heard me say this many times. So that's basically what it is. And I think I was listening to you guys saying about solutions, and I thought that was interesting. I think it's in the challenge, and it's honing an effective challenge. So, because it's quite difficult to build larger networks now, isn't it? That they don't want people getting together, like the truckers in Canada, and we've seen other things grow. And amongst friends and researchers that work on my show, it was how to take an effective challenge lawfully, because and getting the right people on board, which means you probably need a fund. So that's where I am with it personally. Just so you know as well, a little bit of background. I got my head into international law, and so far I'm about 70 hours in of personal research. And then I did I've done 28 of 34 lectures into international law to try and understand where we stand in the rules-based international order. And we don't, as a people, we don't have any say in the rules-based international order. So I've been focusing on UN treaties and understanding them, where the clauses are, where the flaws are. But the ultimate thing is that we the people don't have any standing, any say in the rules-based international order, which they use. I've got all the contracts here. I've been through it. I won't go through it too much. But so basically, these people meet in a room and they draw up, they come to a verbal agreement based on an MOU. That MOU is turned to a derivative contract, which I have here. Then that is signed, which is skeptical and thin and very challengeable. Then once that's done, that is then ordered into each nation state's law. We don't know this is going on. And the next thing that we know is we find out that we can't do something because of international law or international obligations. I see that as one crack in the system that is challengeable at a national level, to find out who is doing that. So I think that's a key point. But I think ultimately, we've seen many people try and challenge the current status quo, deep state, whatever you want to call it, and really not being that effective. And I think ultimately where I am right now is I need to form a fund, which makes it tricky. So that needs to be, you're going to need legal, you're going to need accounts, you're going to need all that stuff, and to hire the right lawyers to take it to them, because mainly because I don't think they're dealing in good faith, and that would be a starting place. But I'd need advisory from lawyers, and each one of our nations needs to take it to them rather than just assume what they're saying is true. Val, back to you.
So, Rhea, I heard you talk about a plenipotentiarian, and basically, if you could break that down, but for those in Alberta that are listening, it's like there's, like a secret group, and there's one big shot, and he or she goes and makes deals and locks you into it, and you don't really know anything about it. And can you kind of break that down, a plenipotentiary and how they fit in to
Sure,
this?
sure, sure. Shout if it gets boring, right? So, each country is allocated a plenary. That they're called a plenary. The title is a plenipotentiary, but they're sort of referred to as a plenary, and they're issued plenary powers, which means they can sign sovereignty, not necessarily over, but they can deal, let's say, sit round the table with sovereign power, and they're called a plenary. Each country out of the 195 odd countries have a plenary, and most people don't even know who they are. Take October just gone, the United Nations meeting that happened, what they call, they love their titles, don't they? The high level treaty meeting, where they were offering all the heads of state to come and sign on a plethora of treaties, and a treaty is a pledge as opposed to a contract, so it's a different kind of thing. That's why it's a derivative. It's an instrument, so it's not like a normal contract. So your country, wherever you're listening, I don't know how many people are listening, you have a plenary, so find out who that is, and then they attend these meetings, which is effectively, they would say, public, and then that's closed, and then they have something called a plenary meeting. Those plenary meetings are people with the power that speak for you and me. They meet and they hone in verbally how they want to participate into the international rules-based order. They hone that in, and there's 4 levels to before you get to ratification. Ratification is a terrible thing, by the way. It sounds like a good thing, but it's kind of not. You get accession, acceptance, approval, ratification. So there's 4 stages to each treaty. Each one of those stages is signed in a contract, which I have here. Then that is then brought into national law and then audited into yours and my national law. And we don't know about it until we can't move. It's like a straitjacket you can't see. So that's what we got going on. They're called a plenary. They have sovereign power that are issued to him, which is might be shocking to some. And then they sit down. And right now, the United Nations, although it's we're getting major distraction by the Israel-Palestine thing. There's loads of other conflicts in the world as well, but that's the main one that's sucking the oxygen out of the room. Behind the scenes, these plenary meetings are going on, and it will be audited into law. And if nothing else, even if I can't get to it that way, it would be nice for people to know establishment perma-state mechanisms that are going into place and affecting our lives, and the people know nothing about it. Does that help?
Can I be a little more specific for your listeners?
Help yourself. Yeah. Hi.
Well, and you would know this better than anyone, but the World Health Organization, run by Tedros, who is an absolute communist controlled by the communist Chinese, because they took over his country and he's beholding to everything that they order him to do. And so Tedros, who is now the head of the WHO, who isn't even a doctor, a medical doctor, he, along with other nations, are implementing one of your treaties that will force every country basically to follow WHO dictates. And in the treaty, they get to decide what is an epidemic, and they can decide whether or not restrictions can be put on the population. They're not an elected body. They're part of the United Nations, and basically they are controlled by the globalists, whose intent is to stifle all freedom in any democratic or republic. And so that's going on right now. And we know that Biden is looking at signing this treaty. And I think maybe, Chris, you might know, or Greg, that I think Canada has already signed on to it. So the next time they have a COVID-like hoax, they will be able to shut everybody down, and there'll be no movement in your country, and you won't be able to buy groceries. You won't be able to travel, and that's all in the works right now.
May I interject as well? So
Go ahead.
I'm glad you pointed that out. So yeah, what's happened is there's a deadline for countries to make amendments to the current wording of the impending global pandemic treaty. That and it's from the WHO. So I believe the deadline is May. I've done 3 podcasts on this. The last one was with James Rogowski. You can find it on the Whistle Stop Cafe Facebook page with all my other podcasts. But James goes through this very, very methodically to let people know how this is working. So the end of this month, not the end, pardon me, I think it was January 24th, January 25th, there's a meeting that WHO is holding to talk about some of these things. And I forget the details. But again, you can find that on my Facebook page. But the key here is that we don't actually have to sign on to anything, because the way the wording is we can withdraw or make amendments, but only by May of this year. If we don't do anything by then, we're automatically included in this. So another reason why I'm a strong believer in Alberta independence is because anything like this, if we're going to make any deals on an international level that infringe on the sovereignty of any citizen of any country, that country should be offering the choice to the people via referendum, period. It should never be a plenary committee. It should never be one person that's just signing things in secret like Chrystia Freeland is doing right now. This should always be a direct democracy thing, because you know what? In a democracy, if people want to give up all their rights and be governed harder, like I'm sure there's people out there that have shirts that say "Govern me harder, Daddy." They're free to advocate for that, but do it through the democratic process, right? Not behind closed doors.
I love that one, Chris Scott. Govern me harder, Daddy. That's great. That's great. A quick question for REA BOW, if we can switch it back to her mic wise. I have a quick question. Great stuff on the contractual conversation and stuff. But REA deals with a very international community and heavy involved, obviously, in Europe. My last count, I think, on your show, REA, I think you counted out 34 countries. I'm sure it's more than that. My question to you would be, do you see a difference, REA, from your perspective as a host? Do you see a difference from, let's just say, European folks, or a lot of your audience, to United States, stateside people, Americans? Do you see kind of a difference, whether it is in tone or attitude or worldview, whatever? Just want to get your point of view because you're so international.
Okay. I shall use my internationalness. All right. So here's what I've got. I've got about 500 researchers in the background, and I run the radio station. So I'm responsible for 168 hours a week that goes out. And with this, we have a problem. And from an information point of view, is a lot of us are preaching to the choir, I find. So a lot of the things that I came in with there, I think you guys already know. Maybe not the plan, maybe a couple of bits, but you kind of know, don't you? And I'm finding it across all the shows, across all the English speaking world, that we're kind of preaching to the choir a bit. Like I have a busy chat room, a couple of them, and other shows do as well. And the chat room is all over it, right? That in fact they probably know more than the host, to be honest. You know, the internet things there, they lock people up, people went digging. Some people have been down more rabbit holes than I can probably count. And I'm finding that's an issue where there's a lot of preaching to the choir. So, and my own, I do an hour of the 4 hours, so I cover stuff that isn't that purposely, so I'm not preaching to the choir. It's like empowering someone that already knows there's a systemic issue is one thing, right? So those people are maybe looking for nuance, solutions, like real real life doable solutions as opposed to something that's beyond reach. That's a problem. So really, like, I think what I just said, you guys already know all that stuff, and this is happening across my network pretty much 168 hours a week. And we need to get in front of new people is the play, in my view, in terms of show content, entertainment. I think the red pill bunch, so they can tolerate hearing the same thing again, there needs to be a high level of entertainment, so they will listen to it again and maybe bring something new to the table. But ultimately it's about the pink pill and hitting that 40% in the middle and finding what format works for them. I think it needs to be slick. It needs to be really tight, well sourced, well presented, with a good layer of humor, because it sort of makes us all the same, doesn't it? So just to summarize, we have a preaching to the choir problem, and we need to find our way into formats that fit for the new people that you like. You don't need to convince me that they want to call it democracy but run communism kind of powers. And like, they know what's going on in the UN treaty plenary meetings. So when Trudeau or Biden or whoever stands up there and says the word democracy, they know what's going on the international scene. So I think our play is new people and the red pill folk, if I can, I don't know what else to call it. um I think they need a high level entertainment value with some real proper solutions that they can do, and the rest of the play is the 40, I don't know what the number is, 40% in the middle that are open to suggestion and are new. There's a lot of it. I think you guys know way more than I do. That's what I think.
Ria, I love what you shared. And for those of you that missed Ria's show yesterday, you can find it on Rumble. Really easy, Red Pill Radio. Search it out. Ria, can you go into solutions a little bit? I'm taking notes and reaching, the unreachables, and using whatever our talent and skill is to connect with them. You talked about teenagers. You had some interaction over Christmas with a teenager, and you were engaging with them. What is a way in Canada, I'll zone into Alberta, where there is high level corruption? There's unimaginable, gruesome things that are happening. Do you feel like the crime element, and because it's raw, like, it's the stuff going on there. I mean, this is a new level of psychopath that I suspect the whole world could really, really get behind and be a part of that, like, public justice. I'm a real big fan of accountability and public justice. Any thoughts on that?
Solutions, yeah. I'll just, Val, if you don't mind, I'll just hit Greg's question to answer it, because I didn't really answer Greg's question. Is on the Five Eyes and the Nine Eyes scene, I think culturally we have the nuanced differences, but as cultures we overlap. If it was a Venn diagram, we're nearly on top of each other. The English speaking world, we're all on a very similar timeline, I think. Like, no one's particularly, like, the US has got the loudest news cycle. But like, when you look into the other news cycles, because I have a research, I depending on how big the country is, I have 1 to 2 researchers per country, and they'll come in and we'll load up ready for the show on a Sunday. But to answer your question, Greg, the Five Eyes and Nine Eyes countries, what was Echelon? We're all on the same timeline, I think, pretty much. The vets are getting in, everybody's getting in, and they're saying their piece, even if it's very similar. On the solution side of things, with the crime, I think we all know, again, preaching to the choir, is when poverty increases, crime goes up with it. In terms of individual incidences, I'm not so much on top of that in terms of Alberta or Canada. But ultimately, what you guys know, again, preaching to the choir, when crime goes up, no, when poverty goes up, crime goes up. And that is to be expected. If you're going to put in the mix, I think, imports, let's say, because I sort of see it as rather like a closed system. Like once upon a day when the nation state was revered, patriotism runs strong, which I know it does in like mid-age and older age folk, but the young folk, they've not got that thing so much because they've sort of just been so diluted down by different influences. Like the system was much more closed, and the way forward in life per culture was an agreed upon thing. It was much more acceptable without outside influences. Once you influence that effectively a closed system and you start opening it up to different influences, the whole thing just goes all over the place. So individually, I don't know the individual circumstances, but when you open up a system to weigh lots of different influences, like I don't know what you guys think, when people see, I call them the rubber boat people, when the rubber boat people come across, I think people say, you know, some folk from different cultures that are near you and you speak with them, they've been raised in your culture, they're pretty similar. Those folks that have come from Africa, I've been out of the 52 countries in Africa, I've been to 23, and that is such a different culture. And I don't think that the masses, or my proposal is, I don't think the masses view them as very different. I think they view them as similar to their friends from different cultures that are local. And I think that needs to be understood and somehow got across in a non-assuming diplomatic way, Val.
On the younger generation, Rhea, and really winning over, as you say. Um, I call them the no's or the undecideds. I know you touched on it. I know Val really hits on this a lot. She has a wonderful event every once a month called Soup Sundays, which is literally bringing the community to back to 1950s handshake world, as I say. There seems to be, I know at least stateside here in the United States, there seems to be a real, just a craving for going back to normalcy, common sense. I call it 1950s handshake world. What do you see? I know you've touched on it, but what do you see really reaching out to, as you say, the pink pill folks, and also if you would let folks know about the eyes. That's not familiar to a lot of American audiences. Your Five Eyes, if you would.
I think everybody knows it, Greg, to be honest. I will though, but I think people know. The kids. So what are you asking me about the kids? Are you asking me where do the kids, right, define kids? Let's say 13 years old to what we're going to do, 23, say, around there. Are you asking me where they fit in the picture, where they fit in the bigger picture, or where the issues are around that demographic?
Oh, great clarification. I would say really specifically on the two generations, we've got Generation Z, of course, which are basically 15-year-olds to 25. And now here we go. The young alphas that I used to call just the little babies, little baby alphas, they're entering the workplace. They're 15, 16 years old. I guess number one, really how to reach them with obviously there's an amazing what it's not apathy. They just don't know the information. They don't know in the States here the U.S. Constitution. A lot of them just don't know. They've not been raised with basic morals, ethics, etc. Just, I guess, really talking behaviorally, if you will. How do we reach those folks as common sense folks, whether it's wanting more freedoms in Europe or, the Alberta folks up here or just the good old freedom folks down here in the States? How do you reach those folks? They're definitely a blank canvas, if you would, if you will.
I don't think they'd listen to you and me. I don't. I think they're largely like they're doing short form. So think where the platforms are growing, where you see a demographic response is, excuse me, is like a 60-second thing on TikTok, and like I think the age group, I don't know, you know, all the generations, right? The slightly older generation, let's say us, all right, for good measure. I don't know everybody on here, obviously. We kind of want to get nuance and we want discussions and dialogue and solutions and real common sense, grounded stuff based on the culture that we grew up in that we're starting to struggle to recognize. They don't have that template, right? So you and I don't think we can do it, but you and I, if we was to do that, we'd have to go to their world and we'd have to see what and understand them, which many don't. I understand a lot of the young folk via the Web3 scene because I deal in Web3 and I deal on the crypto, not just cryptocurrency, but cryptography and privacy and digital assets, which I think many people our age, again, I don't want to speak out of turn, don't see value in it so much, and they see a lot of value in it. So I think, what to say, if any one of us our age wanted to really connect with somebody of a few generations away, you've got to go their world. Go gaming, talk PCs, find out the best crypto coin that they're into, find out the latest music they're into. And I think that's generally beyond our reach for most of us. I just happen to be part of the nerd herd, and a lot of the nerd herd are quite young. So I'm accepted in there. And they give me an allowance to be a bit older because I can speak their language in terms of tech, Web3, IPFS, HTTPS, and all the kind of different protocols that are running onto the internet. So I can go straight in and talk to the nerd herd. You know, you're running HTTPS or you're running IPFS. What are you running? You know, and I can connect with them. If you haven't got that common ground, we're generations apart, aren't we? So it's what would I suggest? If you know someone who's younger, say, I don't know, 30, and they're on a scene on the internet, maybe they'll know. Maybe we need to you need to voice your views to say, I don't know what ages to throw at these, say 30, and then get it across to them to get a bridge in between to find a connection. But otherwise, I think most people that like debate and things like that, I just don't think
Yeah.
we're too old to reach
No,
them.
I'll
Back
tell
to
you
you.
what, wait till you're in your 60s, Rhea. You know, it's just like sports. You have to stay young. You have to stay young in order to have a competitive team. I really have, and I know a lot of men that I know. I'm mentoring a lot to Gen Z and the new alphas, just whenever possible at
Really?
all.
I
Oh
sort of
yeah.
only half believe you.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll call you on. Oh, goodness. Before I want to jump branches real quick because I do want to call on Captain James McCormick on this because he's dealing with a lot of the young generations as far as recruiting military wise. But I want to touch base with Chris Scott here. By the way, Rhea, Chris Scott, I don't know if you've heard, he's the owner of the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. And he defied the Canadian government by keeping his cafe open during the COVID
I heard
lockdown.
about you, Chris.
Yeah, and Justin Trudeau kicked him in jail. But either way, I want to call on Chris Scott because he's got a scoop. Imagine that. And then I would like to touch base with James McCormick, Cap McCormick, my Purple Heart hero, to talk about. We're talking Gen Zs really in Alpha and how to communicate to them. Over to you here, Chris, and take as much as time as you need, because indeed a lot of the listeners have never heard of you and or of you, and there'll be a lot of people on replay and replatforming for this. So take the mic here and take all the time you need, Chris.
Thanks, Greg. I actually don't have too much time. I ran out of time a few minutes ago, but I'll shave off a few more minutes here for you. I just want to really quickly go over some solutions. So earlier, Captain McCormick asked, how can Americans help? Well, here's the reality. If you look at the situation we're facing in Alberta, in Canada, even in the United States, what gets change happening? It's attention. It's not just attention, but people have to know, right? So the Alberta Prosperity Project, of which I'm the CEO, the interim CEO, that's what our job is. We're trying to get this out to Albertans as to, hey, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is how we get there. I see on there's a man by the name of Tim Hoven listening right now. Tim was an independent MLA candidate for the Rimley Rocky Mountain House Sundre area. He's also the president of an organization called Take Back Alberta. Now, Take Back Alberta, I mentioned before that Canadians are very non-civically engaged. Take Back Alberta motivated tens of thousands of Albertans to start showing up and voting and using their voices. And one of the results was we forced our premier to resign in this province. So Tim is a great guy to talk to about that. Also, I see that Chris and Carrie Productions, of which I am the Chris, and Carrie, I'm assuming, is listening. They're listening as well. Carrie's another business owner who lost his bar and his restaurant in Calgary through all this. So you got a lot of people on right now that are very well versed in these things. So the solution is exactly the same as it was for business owners who were done with their restrictions. It's stand up and say enough is enough, whether it's individually in your municipality, in your province, in your country, whatever. People have to start showing up and using their voices. Now, thank goodness for COVID, and I know that sounds weird, but that opened our eyes to a lot of these things, and it really got us looking at what was going on around us. So solution-wise, we need to start taking back the institutions that have led us astray. Municipal councils, school boards, library boards, all of these things. We have to start showing up, doing our civic duty, and being engaged. We have to not just vote in elections, but we have to be involved in our constituency association meetings. We have to be involved in our political parties, in annual general meetings, making policy, all those types of things. We have to get involved, and not everybody will. The younger generation, a lot of people, maybe they don't care, maybe they just ignore everything because they're doing okay. But the reality is we're not going to reach everyone. But it's important to note that there's been some studies, I can't remember what the professor's name was, but she determined that it only takes 3 to 3.5% of the people in a society to change the direction of the society. So every single one of us who's been affected, every one of us who wants change and can see the problems, we have to be involved. We have to be that 3.5% that changes the direction of society. And if we have to drag people kicking and screaming with us to get to prosperity, that's what we have to do. And we have to not be concerned about it. So if Americans want to help this, I would say help the organizations in Alberta that are doing these things. Become a member of the Alberta Prosperity Project. Yes, you can do that, even if you're an American. Get to know the messaging and what we're doing. Financially support. Do the types of things that we do in elections. If you want to win an election, you have to get your name out there. Mr. Kesler knows all about this. If we could get this message, if we could get the APP message out to every man, woman, and child in Alberta, we would win. But in order to do that, it's going to cost a pile of money. And the problem with some of the things that have happened in Alberta, for instance, our premier resigning, is that a lot of people went right back to sleep and thought, oh, we won, we don't need to do anything. Well, that's not the case. But those people are also people that, donate and help do ad campaigns and education campaigns and billboards and stuff like that. If we could build a war chest of finances that we could splash this whole province with information about these issues, we would have a really, really good chance at making some difference. And by Alberta standing up, the rest of Canada probably would as well. And it's kind of contagious. Courage is contagious, and this will be it'll create a ripple effect over the rest of the world. So that's what I say for solutions. It's the same as it's always been. Stand up and get involved, and don't listen to those people that say that your vote doesn't matter, your voice doesn't matter. Those people are responsible for the situation that we're in right now, and I won't give them a second more of my time. Unfortunately, I also don't have any more seconds of time, so I better go. But thank you very much, Greg, for inviting me to the show, and thank you to the other speakers and participants. I've really enjoyed listening to what you say, and I would be thrilled to have any one of you on my podcast on the Chris and Carrie Show here in Alberta. I'd love to talk about this stuff more when we have more time. So thank you very much.
That's Chris Scott from Mirror, Alberta, owner of the famous Whistle Stop Cafe. What a show it's been. Wow. So much to unpack. I just want to give the floor to anyone that wants to share what's on their mind. Captain James, Greg, REA. Do we still have our favorite former MLA, Gordon Kesler, on? I believe he's still here too. Anybody want to jump on?
Val, quick update here. Quick update. I definitely want to hear from Captain McCormick about the generations, the alphas and the Gen Zs as far as challenges. I want to check here though with REA BOW to see how her time is going. Just time wise, whether we want to do, a sign off. Everybody's on the run, of course, and stuff too. So I'll just touch base with Rhea. Are you still there?
No, I'm cool for a bit. I want to learn from you guys. I wanted to ask something actually.
Go
Is
for it. Go for it.
like I'm in a position to get stuff out across terrestrial radio in various different countries and online, and like how what would you say to me, like cover this or cover that or get this out there? Does anybody want to jump in and give me some direction on, like, put something on the map your end, or for a generation, or for the vets, or for a something,
Oh,
because I'd like
that's
to do that.
Well, I think this is James McCormick here in West Virginia. I love hearing what you were saying, especially about all of these things that are happening without our knowledge, because we have become a society that just takes what's fed to us, and if we're comfortable, and that's not just in America, that's around the world, as you have pointed out very eloquently. I think if there's anything that you could do is to continue that message, to let people know about some of these things, like the UN, these treaties that occur that become law for people in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, and we not have a say in it. That's very important. That's a very vital piece of freedom that we can all appreciate, that we should all be, know something about before it occurs, so that we have an opportunity to utilize whatever resources we have in each country to oppose that, to speak out against it. So, yeah, that would be the one thing I would say. And I appreciate all the great things that you're doing. And I'll definitely put you on my list of listening to radio shows that I have. Thank you.
You're very kind to say thank you. I kind of do. So I think I see the importance as you do, and I think people would want to know that there is a mechanism in place, as they call it, a democracy, that audits into each, like every nation on earth. Well, no, if they sign or ratify the treaty. And if no one's ever looked up the meaning of ratify, go and look up the meaning. It's actually quite a crazy thing. I'm not going to sort of paraphrase it, but if you look at the exact meaning of what ratification means, it's really quite shocking. If I could call you James. James, sure, I do hammer it home. The problem with this kind of content is quite a grown up thing. So I try and reimagine it and reimagine. I don't know where I got that from. I reformat it so I can repeat it for regular listeners and it doesn't get boring. Like I said, we've got a preaching to the choir problem, and that's where the formatting comes in. So I'll rewrite the format for people that are just dropping in. So it's a quick drop. I'll put it in between somewhere. I'll format it in a segment with a sound. I use a lot of sound bites, and I reformat it in from the horse's mouth is the approach, really. So I'm on board with that, because I think people would really like to know. If you ask someone or a government minister, who is the plenary for our country? I bet they don't know, James.
Oh, I bet you're right. I know you're right. And I like how you say to reformat it. We always say to put it on a level that everybody can understand. It's not to insult the intelligent, but it's to help educate those that maybe have not achieved that level of understanding, and to be able to put it in so for instance, Greg's talking about the generational gaps. The younger generation that hears that, they just that's just some noise. It doesn't bother us. It's happening in some other country. It doesn't really affect me. And we have to be able to point out, this is how this affects you, and not only you, but your short-term future. So most of them are thinking, what am I going to do when I graduate college? Or what am I going to do when I graduate high school? Well, if you are limited in your ability to work for, say, energy companies that produce gas, oil, and coal, well, you're probably looking at tens of thousands of fewer jobs out there and fewer opportunities. Now, the kickback on that, oh, but you'll have all these green energy opportunities. And if you really look at some of those opportunities are very few and far between. And I think the only opportunity that will be available is going to be, the opportunity to take whatever the government gives you, live on it, and think that you're going to be happy with it. And I think that's ultimately the goal here. It's a control mechanism to be able to control the people. You control the people by controlling how much money they make, who they go to the doctor to, when they can go, how they can go, and it really, really is becoming prevalent in a lot of places. So, thank you again for that, and I really appreciate what you're doing.
Rhea, can I jump in for a minute?
Help yourself. I'm just hanging out.
So-
I'm just drinking coffee.
All right. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I'm a homeschooling mom, and I really am passionate about community at the most local level. And I'm part of a lot of kind of at home based networks. So this is where the moms and dads and the kids get together. So I'm passionate about national security issues as well. And so I really look at the dynamic of the family unit. And I believe that if you are opposed to American values, it is in your best interest to really know what's going on inside of the family home. Because if you can float a little balloon in my backyard and see what's going on inside, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what a tipping point looks like. And if there's a lot of, say, unhealthy marriages or home units, you're going to find that a nation is only as strong as they are at home inside the home. So it means like you can't hide what's really going on inside of yourself. And if the enemy knows that and has access to, like, say, I'll just throw this out there. Say you're a politician and you're having an affair, or you're watching porn and it goes into an element of other things, and the enemy happens to see that about you. Well, all of a sudden, you're owned. You're owned. That's the way it
Define the
goes.
enemy.
I would say anybody who is against freedom and liberty. Anyone who in their heart wants to see people locked down and controlled. Those that, get to high levels of making decisions, and they want to strip individual rights and freedoms. And depending on where they are on the food chain, they can influence and use fear mechanisms to control people. So that's a real concern. So, like, the inside of the family unit, to me, should be a top national security concern. If you're preparing to go to war, as an example, and you've got a whole bunch of dysfunctional, let's just say we'll take men for a minute, and they're completely dysfunctional in unhappy marriages, their wives are running around on them, do you think that they're going to be prepared and ready and in the right frame of mind to go into a battle and win it? So I really do believe that what's going on inside of the family unit has great impact also from a predictability standpoint. It shows you how strong your nation really is. And I was talking about crimes earlier and how that factors in. If you take Alberta and you look at what's actually going on, the level of corruption, the representation, the taxation with no representation, it's a matrix, and there's there's so much going on that I think people can only handle so much. So we have to start somewhere to fix this. And I believe that the solution part of it really comes down to the individual. And I wouldn't be able to say that without, in my own life, being someone who was a high achiever and didn't have my priorities in order. And as a wife and mom, that, it wasn't until I came to the United States really and prioritized my first role as a mother and a wife, and everything else was behind that I could really see and map out the importance of looking inside yourself and identifying where the weaknesses are, because you can't hide it. You might think you can for so long, but you really can. If you want to strengthen your nation and make you a top force, there's no faking it. That's my opinion. Any comment?
Yeah, I'll try and work with it. As I'm listening to you, intuitively, I think, right, I think I perceive what you said is there's some issues with the LGBTQ thing, which affects a traditional nucleus of a family. I think that's going on. So to challenge that beast, I think there's a shelf life on that, Val. I think they'll get away with doing it for a while, but there's, as far as I can see, even on the international scene as well, it's running out of shelf life. And like the people that they did influence to move away from, let's say, Christian fundamentalism, a man, a woman, children, based on old traditions, is sort of coming back a bit. I think people are trying out this, let's call it a new way, and they're finding maybe it's not as fulfilling as they were sold. So I think there is an organic level, there's an organic process of the pendulum swung via influence from a screen of some kind, be it a phone, a television, or whatever. Like, hey, youngsters, try this thing out. And I think there is an organic shelf life on it. And I think we are just starting to see the pendulum swing back. So I think there's hope for the nucleus, from your point of view. From the strength of a nation, that needs defining as well, doesn't it? Because there's a lot to the strength of a nation. For example, if you're living in an economy like the US economy is running at 120% GDP, Russia's is running at 22% GDP, is if you're living in an economy with that kind of debt leverage, anything you do, um, in any relationship, but particularly a marriage, if you can't achieve a discretionary spend of around, I'd say, a minimum of 35%, your marriage is going to be under tremendous stress. So I think what do I think? I think it lies down to some nice, simple numbers and some real, look, if you can't achieve this, because if you can't get 35% discretionary income, your marriage is going to be under so much stress. And then when the thrill's gone, BB King, like, you're going to know about it. How are you going to deal with that? So know about this thing before you get into it, and know and align your values. Ask around. Stop making statements like you know it all and start asking questions of people that have been there. Is that useful, Val?
That is amazing. So
Hey,
good.
Rhea. Thank you so much for being on. The theme of the day for me is be a sponge every day and learn. I've heard you say a number of times on your show, you don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. It's great when we don't know nothing and we go into every day really just trying to learn this stuff. I mean, I'm absorbing this stuff from this show with multi guests, and it's awesome. My motto of life, I don't know if you've heard this, is, and I do this for my sign off, but is wake up in kindergarten every day. There's so much to learn and so little time, because before you know it, you're in grade 1. And if anything, that's what I get from your show, Rhea, and your approach to things, that humility where you really, God, there's some smart people out there. I cannot believe the lineup of brilliant people on your show. You could go through the list if you like, but bottom line, no matter what, this is what it's all about, is all this kind of conversation. We're at the diner today at a tribute to Whistle Stop Cafe. But I just want to thank you for that. And if anything, I really see introducing a lot of the folks that are even on this broadcast today to you. And here's an example. Captain McCormick, James McCormick, REA. He has a network of military vets. Val and I have actually been hosts because he has a 2-hour show every Friday night called Continue Mission. And he reaches anywhere from 130,000 military vets, mainly in the U.S. and Canada, but around the world. And when Val and I were on, I think we hit 200,000 live and or quick downloads. And but a guy like Cap McCormick, he touches literally in his network probably 500,000 people or more, REA. So getting great minds together like we are today would be a start for me. And matter of fact, let me just turn it back to James a little bit. By the way, Gordon Kessler has had to sign off. I think he had something to do. He's a busy gentleman too. But James, if I could kick it back to you just a little bit for your feedback, and definitely before REA, I don't know what your time is looking like, but we definitely want to do a real nice sign off for you. I want to tell you, REA, I really mean it. And, I really mean it from Val and me personally. I love your show. And I think you know this. We love your show. People don't know you have a degree in sound engineering, and you're all about sound, and the production is absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. And I say that for my listeners and readers. Anyone who listens to REA's show knows that. And Val and I, for two, are glued to your chat very often, just wanting to take it in. So there you go. Cap McCormick, if you would, just kind of take a few minutes here while REA is still here and kind of summarize and or your thoughts on this stuff.
Sure.
Go ahead, James.
Well, we've listened to ambassadors from many nations, many areas, different backgrounds. People that know me know that I'm a busy guy. I'm constantly on the go. I'm on the go right now. You know what I mean? But we have to make time for the things that are important. And so let me just say this, listening to REA, number one, very impressed, extremely excited to hear more of what you have to say and to develop a communications with you so that we can share information, share knowledge, and start to, share some of the things that I'm seeing here in America, East Coast, rural Appalachia, America, different areas, because what the American may think in California or New York City is a lot different than what the Americans thinking and seeing in rural Appalachia or in, say, the southern states, down into Georgia and Alabama and Arkansas. And I have a lot of folks in those areas that are extremely interested in understanding, what is going on outside of my little burg, my little town, my little community. And this is the way we get that information out. We share it. Um, I loved how you asked, define the enemy. See, I love that. So, and I agree with the definition of the enemy is anyone that opposes freedom, liberty, but also there is a very clear and present enemy force movement in what what we look at is political ideologies. Liberalism used to not be a bad thing. It used to be a very good thing. People, a liberal was someone that looked out for the working class citizen. It was someone that spoke up, against, oppression and tyranny. And at one time, even our founding fathers were considered to be radical liberals. But that's changed. That pendulum, as Greg had said, has swung so far over, and we have extremes on the left and we have extremes on the right as well. And I'm more of of a right, of definitely a right of center person that still believes and dreams in the ability to be able to, for people to be able to have civil conversation and work things out in the ballot box and not the cartridge box. But that's been said too, and that's been done in the past as well, to where people stand up and they have to sometimes make a statement. And I make a statement here in my little community, as do most of the people that live here, that some of these things that we see occurring, the violence, the excessive, these smash and grabs that are occurring. Now look at all of those people doing that. 99.99% of them are young people. Young people. Let's just take out anything about race, anything about sex. Let's just look at, they are young people. They are 16, 15 to maybe 20 years old. And they get into a gang and they go into a store and they just run in and they steal everything they can and they run out. We've all seen it. This is a product of a breakdown in what they call the nuclear family. The man, the woman, it's gone. It's not totally gone, but it is gone to a point to where, especially in large inner cities, we see smash and grabs, which are the product of taking away things like, promoting good, solid family values. Like, for instance, Greg likes to talk about us sitting down at the table, and I hear Val say that as well on this radio show. Well, realistically, how many Americans are sitting down at a dinner table to enjoy a meal? Let's just not stop in America. Let's go into Canada. Let's go into the UK. Let's go around these English-speaking civilized nations that used to have that. It's missing. And it's missing because either we're all too busy, caught up trying to work to make a living, or one of the two is absent. The mother or the father is absent. And then they go to school and they get just blasted. Like you said, they've all got a screen in front of their face. They've got a phone, they got an iPad, they got a computer, they got a something. And they're watching all of this stuff. I don't have mom and dad to be able to talk to about this because we don't sit down and have dinners and talk about important things. Look, I've raised 8 children and I have 2 kids that are home. And every day, either I or my wife takes them to school, and every day we pick these 2 up, that the last 2 that are living at the house, and we ask always, how was your day? How did it go? And we have these conversations. Now, we're very fortunate because we have that. But not everyone's able to do that. Our kids go to public school. So, we get to hear all of the nonsense that goes on in some of these public schools. But fortunately, we live in a smaller area where we don't have a lot of that. So most of the teachers that are there grew up in this area, and we have very similar values. But we are very cognizant of the fact that that does not exist anywhere else in this world. So we, as in all of us that are on here, however old you are, however young you are, we're adults. We are the adults that need to be in the room all the time. And we need to be able to have these conversations. And when you get with people, like I deal with people around here, especially in this political arena, that they're just jerks. Okay, there's just no other way to deal with it. There's no way to have a conversation. They are absolutely hell bent on this, that, mainly self promotion. When I find somebody that is just a rude, foul, ignorant person, they're trying to self promote themselves. They're trying to do something, for themselves. They're very insecure in their own abilities to do anything. So we have that because we're in this tech age. And I think clearly we have another enemy in that. And how you deal with that enemy is you communicate this stuff to those that you are with. So if someone does that, and you get to a point to where you finally just have had enough, it's okay to shut them down, to push them away, or to ignore them, because they're going to suck the oxygen out of every show that you have, because you're on this radio show and you're trying to promote something good, and this jerk is going to continuously suck up all your time just arguing about something trivial or meaningless or just hurling insults. And that is one thing that that we faced a couple of times on Continue Mission. And I don't have a problem with silencing those people. I hate using
James, do you want to repeat that? James, repeat the last 10 seconds. James, you're dropping out of connection here.
Hey, I bet you Joe Biden heard that Captain McCormick's on again.
Yeah.
James
Sorry,
is back.
guys.
Go ahead. James. Last
Yeah,
30 seconds.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is when we're doing our radio shows, we all have those people that parachute in just to stir crap, just to have arguments, just to push some sort of a nonsense narrative. We all have to have our limits. So in this responsibility, we as the adults in the room have, we also have a responsibility sometimes with protecting the listeners that we have listening to us. Seriously, I've had people come on my radio show so mad because we were talking about, the LGBTQ community will not be able to produce offspring of their own. And I made a statement, and I stand by this statement. If you put 200 transgender men on an island, okay, in 100 years, what do you think you'll have? You will have 200 skeletons. That's what you will have, because there's not going to be any offspring that's going to be able to be produced. So the whole thing about being fruitful and multiplying, it doesn't occur in that community. And let me tell you, I had a local person from West Virginia called in who I thought was a conservative guy. He was an Army guy as well, and absolutely just started to lay into the whole message. And after about 3 to 4 minutes, I started watching, people starting to drop off and messages like, this guy's an idiot, and he really is, and he still is. And we just finally just have to pull the plug. And you pull the plug because it's like nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean? And those that want to hear it, they need to develop their own platform to put it out. So some silencing, sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to shut people up, or at least prevent a very, harsh, nasty, tirade from continuing on. So that is the only time that I've ever done that. But usually if someone just has a difference of opinion with me, we have the debate, and Greg can tell you that. So I think that part of being the adult in the room also means that, I wouldn't have my kids, if I was in a restaurant and someone was in there cussing and committing so much nastiness, I would get up and I would take my kids and leave, or I would ask the person to stop saying that. Most likely the best course of action is to get up and just not come back. So those are the things that are happening, because they're getting it every day on their technology. They're getting it on their phones. They're getting it on they get to watch TikTok, like you said. I think that was a beautiful thing. Boy, if we could develop a TikTok message under 30 seconds that just promoted freedom and liberty. How about that? So anyways, that's the last little spiel that I got, and I'm going to have to parachute out of here, guys and gals.
James,
Maria, I love you. I love the accent too. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to listen to you just for that, okay?
That's how I got the gig in the first place in New York.
Yeah.
Captain McCormick, you're just awesome. Throwing his weight around here in the chat room. Here we go. This has been fabulous. Is your time short here, Captain? Do you have to parachute out or?
Yeah, I got a parachute out because I'm driving and moving
Uh,
around, and it's
okay, I'm gonna
yeah,
throw you a
yeah.
curveball.
Hey, look, Greg, here it is. Here it is, Greg. Here it
Okay.
is. I am out moving another washing machine. Okay. I mean, I got mother-in-laws and in-laws and everything else. Okay.
Oh, Captain. Okay, I'm gonna throw a curveball here before you leave. You know me, right? And you
Hit me with
know
it.
my show,
Uh-huh.
Secrets from the Inside, is not a democracy. It's a dictatorship, right? And Greg's the dictator, right? We had a show,
Right.
James. We had a show that was 3 hours and 17 minutes. But anyhow, before you parachute
Right.
out, okay. And while I have Rhea here, um, take a couple of minutes and you can condense it. But I don't want you to hold back. I'm throwing a curveball here. I want you to tell the story of the Iraqi soldiers surrendering to a UFO while I have everybody here. And you take as long as you need, James. But I need to hear that. It's actually presented on my YouTube channel, or as my friend REA BOW calls it, PooTube. I love that because of censorship. I love that. But James, take a minute. I'm not going to order you to tell that story, but boy, if you could in 3 to 5 minutes, that'd be great. While I have you here and while we have Rhea here.
So I'm gonna condense this down. So short story. Obviously, Iraq War. Active participant in that war. Um, we were heading back from a rather eventful period of time in and around April of 2004. And we had been informed that an ambush, that there's the possibility of an ambush that's coming. So we were in and around the town of If you look it up, there's a lot of history in You've got the ziggurat. You actually have a great World War One um, British UK monument that's there as well, Rhea, and it's close to the ziggurat, and a lot of fantastic history there. And as we were heading out back from Baghdad, northern Baghdad, we started to come into the town, and as we came in, we were prepping for what we thought would be an ambush, and what we ended up seeing was two gentlemen frantically, waving their hands and getting on their knees. I mean, it was almost reminiscent to some of the surrendering that I saw in the first Gulf War, but I had never seen anything like it in this war. I don't have an answer. So what I think is, sorry, my watch keeps going off. So in this case, we had came up. These guys were bad people. Okay, let me just cut to the chase. They were very bad people. They were members of the Al Qaeda element there in Iraq, and there's just no other way about it. They were very bad people. So for them to surrender without firing a shot was amazing. And um, our interpreter that was with us said they must be crazy. And I said, well, what are they saying? They're screaming that a green light and a silver lights had come out of the sky that they'd set up, and they had 30 of their friends that lined up to ambush us. And come to find out, they had several roadside bombs placed. I mean, it would have been really bad for us if they, had been able to initiate that ambush. He said, but they're saying these lights came out of the sky and chased them, and that there was this huge windstorm that it just came down like a funnel of dust and like a tornado, and sucked people up out of their shoes. I'm not kidding you. They were very distraught. Um, and as we continued to talk, and as we brought them back in, and we went through the whole interrogation process, they had claimed that they had set up the ambush right near, in and around the town of which was at that time was considered kind of a safer area, and that their whole intent was to ambush and destroy our convoy. And our convoy was nothing but gun trucks We were coming back down from up north doing our thing up there, and we created, we created a bad, well, it's a good reputation for us, but a bad reputation for the enemy, and literally their whole goal was us. And but they claimed, and again, this is a short and condensed version, that these lights came out of the sky and came down, and basically they couldn't speak, they couldn't move. They said that these figures, that they turned into this cigar shaped figure and started to speak to them and told them, you must stop what you're doing. You will not see paradise if you continue to do what you're doing. And so, if you remember, most of radical Islamic terrorists believe that if they killed in jihad against, people like us, the infidel, that they would somehow get an automatic ticket to paradise. Whatever this was that approached them in and around the ziggurat told them that's not the case. You're not going to go to paradise. You are going to burn in hell if you continue what you're doing. And that is the only reason why they threw down their weapons, because quite frankly, I've never seen, quite honestly, I have never seen a radical terrorist with the records and the sheets that these guys had. These guys were trained by the Iranian, royal guards. Okay, so these were bad people with a very bad, bad intention, and that's what happened. And I know that there were 2 other cases in both Iraq and Afghanistan where something similar occurred. And as more of this stuff comes out about the UFOs and the interactions and the different things, people will ask me, well, do you think that's a UFO? Do you think it's this? I said, here's what I will tell you. I believe that God works in mysterious ways. I do. And it's obvious that God did not want me or my men to die in that desert, because when we went back to investigate the area, there were weapons strewn all over the place. The roadside bombs were set. They were set, and then on top of them, there were cans filled with railroad spikes and nails and so much stuff. If they would have blown that stuff up, it would have been disastrous. But the fact that they had weapons, I mean, I'm talking RPKs and ammunition, and everything was there, grenades, RPGs. We literally collected, we collected 30 plus weapons out there, several RPG rounds, several things that could have made us have a bad day. And fortunately, we didn't have a bad day. And the only 2 that were left, and to try to justify what they were saying about the wind that sucked up their friends or whatever, we found some shoes, sandals, we found some clothing, but we didn't find any other people, and I didn't find very many footprints outside of that area. So, that's what happened. I was there, we seen it, and my soldiers and I, since that day, we talk about it from time to time. But you know, since that time period, I can tell you that I've been involved in several different things that probably should have killed me, but didn't. So me, I think we were touched by an angel. I think that we were blessed. I'm a believer in that. And other people think it's a UFO, somebody from outer space. I don't know, but whatever it was, I'm thankful for it. So that's it, Greg. Took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but there you go. Do you hear me? Hello?
Okay, I'll jump in then because no one's jumping in. That's an amazing story. Just a quick question: can I call you James? Is that okay?
If I can call you Rhea.
Okay, that's cool. Is the people that were involved, did they
Mhm.
did it drive them closer to faith?
It has, as a matter of fact. The one thing that is very prevalent is that we all have we all are regular churchgoers, and not just regular churchgoers, but we raise our families with reverence and respectful fear of the Lord.
Okay, so most people that were involved didn't sort of perceive it as a UFO thing. It was perceived as, I don't know how to say it, God intervened or something. So it was perceived in that way.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of things that happen. I've had bullets go through the crease of my pants and not touch my leg. I had a bullet ricochet off my helmet, several actually, and and I had soldiers. I had a soldier that got shot right through the cheek. His mouth, his mouth was open. The bullet went through one side and out the other, and it didn't break a tooth. It didn't rip his tongue out. Didn't do anything. He just got shot in the face, and he has two little scars that look like dimples on his cheeks now. So there's been many things that had occurred that would bring anyone closer to their faith, Rhea. But in this case, now many of the people I've given this presentation on this, and I do relate the UFOs that have been seen and witnessed in Iraq and in that area, in particular around and the whole Euphrates River Valley. In those, a lot of the people believe it's a UFO. And I always tell people, I'm not debating what you believe. I didn't see what did it. I just saw the after effects. I've seen some weird things, dart across the sky, shoot across the sky at night. But I never was able to see exactly what these two men who were interrogated for many hours, and they never changed their story. Never changed their story. Very interesting.
That's an amazing thing right there. I think that's one of those things, because I don't know what happened, but I kind of think, what Val was bringing up about the family unit and people's concerns and things like that. I think there's a natural process going on with the big picture of like the people that look in at the whole thing's gone crazy. We've got that kind of approach. I think I think what you've just said and the natural process of people like let it permeate their belief system. I think this will start to come to us, let's say right of center, without us actually doing too much more than just supporting each other.
Not I believe you're right. I believe you're right, and I think there were a lot of things that occurred. I lost some good friends. One very good friend, not long before this whole incident occurred, and then of course both my grandparents died while I was over there. So my grandmother had passed away right before this incident, and she was a very strong woman of faith, and I'm not going to get into that story just yet, but I had a dream about her days after she was buried because I could not go home. And what people don't realize is I was raised by my grandmother and my grandfather. So this was like losing my mom and my dad. I lost my grandfather later, you know what I mean, within 6 months after that as well. And both were the same case. But I do believe that God talks to us. I do believe that. I believe that the stronger our faith, the closer we can come to seeing some of these miracles that we don't even realize. How many times have you seen the camera footage of a kid that's pulled out of the traffic like right before they get hit by a car, and the person just instinctively did it, and then you look around and the person's gone. I've seen several of those videos, and I do believe, and I believe that biblically, that it will support the fact that we are, there are angels down here. There are things that we don't quite understand, that occur. Some people may see them as UFOs. Technically, that's true. If you see an unidentified flying object, something flying through the sky, you don't know what it is. That's what it is. It's a UFO. I don't debate, what these people, say, but I'm just saying that we need to look at it from the spiritual perspective as well as the UFO perspective, and realize that, if it's doing something good, then why be afraid of it? I've never felt afraid. I've never felt afraid of any of these encounters ever. So that's pretty much it, though.
Can I share a little thing with you? Let me share a little thing with you. So you've done, you'll come, your guys and you, from what I can gather, believe, I guess that's the key word, that like a special faith type thing happened and you live to breathe another day. James, have you ever heard of something called a Buddhist angel?
I have not, but I would be interested in hearing
A
that.
Buddhist angel is someone that you think is a jerk and they're sent here to teach us how not to go about things.
Ooh, that's interesting.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know those jerks you
That
spoke
is great.
about? They're Buddhist angels.
Yeah. Yeah. That is great that you said that. I guess I don't guess, I know you're right. You look at, the best teacher in how not to be is to see somebody doing something that you know is wrong. You watch these things that occur, things that we would have never thought of, as we were growing up. And I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and by the 90s and the 2000s, look, I'm a grown man, and I've got kids, but I've never seen, and I don't want to sound, too negative here, but I've never seen a time when there's been such a lack of respect for just basic humanity and civility. I don't think I've ever seen a time when it's been, as it is now. And I don't know what creates that, other than a lack of the family unit, a lack of faith. Because honestly, if you walk through life and you think that this is all you've got is this life, why not? YOLO, you only live once. Well, in some cases, people, that's right. You'll only live once, because the next death will be that immortal soul. And I'm a firm believer that, how we live our life today, and not just talk about our faith, but how we live it and demonstrate it. It's extremely important to me, and this is coming from a guy that didn't always believe that way. I always had belief in God, and had the faith system, a Christian faith system, but there were times when I definitely wasn't doing the things that I should be doing, and obviously, lived a very hard life because of it. And I can always go back and say, well, that's, I was just doing what I was trained to do. There's a big difference in doing what you're trained to do and taking pleasure in what you're trained to do. And there was a specific time in this second go around when I went to combat where there was no pleasure in any of that. Now the first time was different. This time, there was no pleasure in it, and I think that I became very much closer. And it just seemed like it was all driven by these kind of experiences, by the losses, and the Buddhist angel. Isn't that crazy? That's awesome. I'm glad you told me about that. I'm gonna have, and it's called a Buddha angel. Is that what? Is that? Did I pronounce that
No,
right?
it's a Buddhist angel. They're people that are, well, they say they're sent here to show us how not to go about things. And once you hear it, you see people and stuff, and you go, Buddhist angel. So it's quite an enjoyable thing, and it's fun, and it kind of it's a different kind of aspect to an angel. It's just because you said the word angel, I thought, oh, that might be quite interesting. I'm starting to worry. I'm sucking up a lot of the room here. Does anybody else want to jump in?
Rhea, I'm sitting back enjoying my own show here. You and James connecting. Okay, now while I have James here, and I got Rhea here. Okay. Another quick curveball. I love that people have heard some of Rhea's expressions already. I would like you to. I love this curveball, Rhea. Go through a little list of your favorite words or your favorite expressions. Of course, start with the lovelies, what that means. But you go ahead and maybe talk the pills a little bit, the red pill, black, blah, blah. And maybe even, oh, I love it, scumbags. If you can, just tell James kind of what it's like to be for you to go through a lot of your expressions on your normal Sunday show. It'd be great.
I think you need to listen to the show actually. So it needs to be in context, really. Um, yeah, I think that needs to be in context and its timing and delivery and all those kind of things. My suggestion would be listen to the show and the context with which it's happening. As I call people scumbags on a regular basis. But it needs to be in context, Greg. Otherwise, people might think I'm insulting them or something.
No, there's no context on my show, Rhea. Our scumbags is great. Uh, but bottom line, it's honestly like James was saying, you know, the expressions and stuff. They're describing really what is the reality out there. There are Buddhist angels, you know, there are scumbags, there are. But no matter how we verbalize it, I just love how feisty it is. And you know what I'm talking about. You kind of bailed on that question a little bit, but I love it. Scumbags is my favorite. But there's no context where you hear, wait, you should hear some of our other episodes. You should hear me and James when we get going. And then Val jumps in, and here we go. We got a hornet's nest, right? So, like I say, I make the rules. Seriously, if you wanted to address that, that's fine, whatever. But I don't know how everyone's time is looking here. I'm good. I've got all day. I'm retired. Remember, James? I'm retired. Um,
Well, yeah, I know that. Yeah, and you know what? And I have enjoyed this show. And look, I just jumped over and popped you a like and a follow, uh, Rhea, and we're going to definitely stay in touch. Now, what I'd like to do now is to tell everybody that I've got a parachute out because, I've got a washing machine that's in the back of my truck and I've got to move it. I'm sorry, folks. I wish that you could be with me to help me experience that up and down those icy steps in West Virginia. But since you can't, just keep me in your thoughts and your prayers, okay? Because I am getting to be an old man, and if I fall and break a hip, it's done. I won't be parachuting next year with the Australians there, Greg. It'll be probably the end of my parachuting career. What do you think about
oh
that?
my God. You were a parachutist. You were a drone pilot. You were a drone instructor. Wait till Rhea hears some of our stories here. Go ahead. Go ahead and sign off, James. And
Yeah.
please, everybody asks, you know, where can we hear this guy? Where can we listen to this guy? Well, first of all, it's YouTube channel. I'm guessing, boy, James, I'm guessing there's 50
Yeah.
videos of you on my YouTube channel at Greg Meakin, by the way. Go ahead and sign off, wrap up, and just
Yep.
bail.
Yep. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a blessed day. And I hope we can do this again sometime. This has probably done more for world peace than any other show that I've been on. So thank you very much.
So good. Thank you, Captain James. This is the second washing machine that he is having to install in the last 60 days, if memory serves me correct. He is so amazing. I love Captain James stories. And if you want to learn more about Captain James on YouTube at Greg Meakin, you will find little snippets. So you will find all kinds of topics and discussions, and you can binge watch. I like to watch over the lunch hour when I have a break. I go to the latest videos and just watch. So that the show today, Secrets from the Inside, episode 0014, we have covered everything. I'm not going to go through all of it, but freedom, 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 voicing opinions, coming up with strategies and solutions. And for those of you that have stuck on this show from beginning to end here, that is amazing. We heard from REA BOW, probably one of my favorite radio shows that I don't miss. Every Sunday morning, I get up at very early in the middle of the night so that I can listen. and I re-listen during the week because there is so much content in her 4-hour jam-packed show that runs every Sunday. Check it out on Rumble, Red Pill Radio. Greg, back to you. Did you want to, anything else you want to go into, or do you want to begin to wind down? How are you feeling?
Isn't it funny? Once again, a little secret is we always plan every show for 59 minutes, right, Val? That was the beginning of our business plan. I love the best laid plans of mice and men, especially mice these days. I will actually, let's start to slowly kind of wrap it up. There's so much to chat about. I can't believe it. You know this well. Just the guests who have been on here today, and I'm just pinching myself how great this has been. But that's what the show's all about. It's called Secrets from the Inside, Val. By the way, it is indeed, folks. That's an over 30-year brand, Secrets from the Inside. It was from the first book I published, Value. I think you're the only human being who has that red book in your hand. It's called Secrets from the Inside, How to Buy a New Car Below Dealer Cost. Published 1991, before the internet. I think you've read that. How many times, Val?
9. I've read it 9 times. You can find it if you can track down U.S. Publishing. A great book.
Oh, but
Yep.
anyhow, so this has absolutely been fabulous. What I want to do, if this is cool, I'd like to, before I forget and stuff, I do want to turn it back to Rhea. I'm so thrilled. Again, I'm so thrilled to have heard from Chris Scott. There's the beginning, just the beginning of a phenomenal working relationship there. Chris Scott is such a legend. The Whistle Stop Cafe, everybody. There'll be a movie made out of that. Hey, there's another idea, Val. There's another idea. But I do want to turn it back to Rhea. For kind of anything. And Rhea, this is totally up to you. It's your schedule at this point. You're over in London, England, so that's like Thursday, right? That's like Thursday time zone wise or something. But you go ahead, take a few minutes. Whether it's kind of a summary of the show or anything on your mind. What I'm thrilled about is we've connected some really, really key people. Val, just with this show, I was thrilled to hear the interaction with Rhea and James, and wait till each other hears each other's stories. James will just go for hours on war stories. We've, again, a number of them on our YouTube channel, but let me turn it back to Rhea. And really, hey, Rhea, there's no rules here. Take 1 minute, take 3 minutes, whatever, take 10 minutes. Do a Joss the Boss 23-minute monologue. But just take over, reflect your thoughts here. We're starting to wind down, as we say. But go ahead, Rhea. Go ahead. I thank you, no matter what, for being on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me. All right, I'll close out with this. It's like tombstone stuff. It's like the stuff you put on a tombstone, like wise advice or whatever, is one of, I think, what do I think? I think everybody wants to fight the big monster and we want to be effective. And I would say if I was talking to my kids, I would say, I think there's calmer waters ahead. And we're just starting to see them as the pendulum swings back in an organic, natural way. And if you wanted to do a bare minimum, just be okay with and flow with the energy of choppy seas, if you like. Is no matter how hard we fight this thing, it's going to be choppy for a while. So be prepared for that, and just keep an eye on the horizon for calmer waters. Can you see more in the distance? And with that, that's the way I'd leave it, really. I think we could, like in a straitjacket, wrestle around, but at the end of the day, we're going to be in choppy waters. And I think if we all took a closer look, if we got out the way of a lot of this stuff that we don't like, they're going to eat themselves. So it's like a judo move, isn't it? You kind of sidestep this energy coming at you. Or a train, it's like you wouldn't try and stop the train, you'd sort of get out the way. I think there's a bit of that involved. Keep an eye on the horizon for calmer seas, but be prepared to be okay with being in choppy waters. That's all I got, Greg.
Well, that's a bunch. Everything today has been great, as you see, Rhea. We have a real diversity of real cool, smart people the common denominator of everything is we're smart people. At least we're waking up in kindergarten every day. So no, that was just I deeply thank you for your appearance today, and I think it's the beginning of something very, very cool down the road, especially connection and stuff. Val, before we wrap and or turn real loose here and stuff, why don't you take a few minutes here, reflect on your thoughts, really about the show itself, maybe what you learned and stuff. We've connected a bunch of people, so take some Val time here. You're the home media mom. Val Olson is known as our military radio gal. Just kind of like Tokyo Rose, but she's the Alberta Rose. And I kid you not, she has got fans of James and his entire network. I bet you Val Olson's got 500,000 personal fans on that. So there's a beautiful segue for you, Val. But just take a few minutes and reflect. This has been absolutely fabulous, Val Olson.
Rhea, the first time that I heard your show was last February, and I had my headphones on, and the sound quality was out of this world. And I was just blown away. So, your show is so different than anything I have heard. And I've been in media and broadcasting for a long, long time. I've never heard anything like it. I love your wise words that you shared today. You encouraged us, but on the note, when you said that we have to learn to just kind of, handle the choppy waters and step aside, kung fu it out of the way. We really do. We are in this for the long haul, and we have to learn how to walk on water, right? We have to learn how to do that. So, such wise words. I really am a big fan of your show. I love I love how you bring me, the listener, alongside. You ask the questions that I would ask, and it's just so special and so different. And it means the world that you would come on the show today and drop in and share your wisdom, but listen. And it really means a lot to me. So from my heart, thank you. I want to go over to Chris Scott, who took the time today from Muir, Alberta, and just poured out, represented what's going on in Alberta, really gave us that eagle eye perspective. And he's a leader back there, no fear. And that's what we need. Captain James told us early on, Alberta, hold the line, no fear. And here in Arizona, we have a sheriff who really runs Arizona in my county, Pinell County, where freedom and God and family are first and foremost here. And he says, oh, now I can't think of it. I lost it. But anyhow, basically, the gist
He
of it
says,
is
"Fear
no fear.
not, do right. Fear not, do right."
There
Just
it
like
is.
Val Wilson says, fool around and find out. Right? That's Val Wilson, fool around. But Sheriff Lamb, get this, okay? Secrets from the inside. Sheriff Lamb says, "Fear not, do right." He copyrighted that statement. So there you go. There's your secret of the day. He sees his future too, perhaps someday in the private sector. Val, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, fear not, do right. Go ahead and continue there.
Yeah, and that's really what life is like here. To go from Canada to the USA, we really do have what I call the upgraded life. There's other Alberta families that have left and recently come here to Arizona. They call it home. And one of our earliest conversations, they've just relocated a few weeks ago. And it takes time to absorb the freedom that you have that you do not have back in Alberta. And it's right from when you go to the grocery store to some of the first comments they say that everybody says who visits here. People are happy, and they genuinely make connection with you. And that's missing. That's part of being in a like-minded community. And I can't say thank you enough. For those of you that are in this broadcast that have stuck through it beginning to end here, it's been a long one. I hope you feel inspired and encouraged. And I just want to take a minute and plug Greg's YouTube channel. There's amazing videos on there. At Greg Meakin is where you can find it. You will find, I believe, over 700 plus videos. There's probably more than that on his website as well, gregmeakin.com. Go to the trending section and you can kind of get a rundown of everything, from Alberta to USA related. Also, just articles. Meet some of his friends. Greg is very, very well connected, as you see today. These are his guests. Secrets from the Inside is his show, 30 years in the making, and his books are hard to get your hands on. We do refer to them quite a bit, but if you are interested in reading his work, the best place to go is gregmeakin.com. And Ria's show, again, I'm going to post that link. Rumble's the quickest, easiest way to find it. So go to rumble.com and Red Pill Radio. You will find it there. And SLLR, Sunday Long Live Radio. And thank you, Greg and Ria, for making this happen today. Greg, back to you.
Sure. You know what this is going to be what's called a wrap, Val. A wrap. What's the time on it? I think we're going to be crowding 3 hours or more. Anyhow, yes.
Sorry, one more thing. Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
Take your time.
Can I just quickly thank you?
Go ahead.
Okay, one quick.
No, go ahead.
So I want to thank my friends who are on standby in the patriotswitch.com/Val store, where you can go and find absolutely no made in China garbage products, all safe American made products that are safe for your family, safe for your home. And my favorites, it takes me forever to go through them, but I'm going to focus on the toilet bowl cleaner because this stuff is amazing. I'm telling you, it cleans your toilets out like nothing else. And it's super inexpensive. So if you want a tour of the store, patriotswitch.com/Val. Greg, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Chris Scott, are you still live here, Chris, on your speaker? Because if so, I'll have you say goodbye and just talk about your website and Facebook page. Or is Chris dropped off? Okay.
Chris is still there. Chris has his daily specials on his Facebook page. He's live and interactive. I did see it early today, Greg. I'm going off of memory here, but he does have a special. If you want me to run through it, I can. Or I can just refer you there to the Whistle Stop Cafe on Facebook. You can find them. But it sounds so good. And I'm going to do this, Chris, okay? So the soup today is turkey vegetable. And for supper tonight, it's liver and onions with mashed potatoes, local Alberta peas, gravy, and soup or salad to start for $16.95. So go check out the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. Back to you, Greg.
Let's finish it up. That's awesome. Thank you, Val Olson of Val Olson Radio on X at Home Media Mom. Goodness, this was amazing. I think we had some real technical trials here that are today that are not of our control. Just saying. We packed so much stuff into this show. I'll just wrap here saying that you can find my work, of course, at gregmeakin.com. It's got my bio and stuff. But if you like what you hear here today and you hear the campfire chat conversational style of the, as you say, Val's kitchen table and dining room table. And in today's case, because of Chris Scott, we were sitting around in the diner at a nice booth in the diner. Remember those days? Boy, I have to ask Chris if he's got those little. You remember the you're too young, Val. The machines, the music machines, where you can sit right in your booth and dial in your.
Yeah, a jukebox.
Yeah,
I think
so.
Is that what you're
That's right. It
talking?
must be 3 hours into the show. I'm starting to talk slow now, right? Getting tired. My voice, I'm sure, is just deteriorating. I had a late start today, Val. I only started at about 4:30 this morning, maybe 5. So it was a little of a late start, but you probably hear it in my voice. My rap, obviously, is just thank everybody. I deeply thank REA BOW. I deeply thank Captain James McCormick. We unfortunately, time-wise, we were not able to imagine that we were not able to get on wonderful Matt Cody, who's the founder and president of the Oil and Gas Workers of America. We were so jam-packed that my sense is we're going to do a standalone show. We'll do a standalone show. It'll be episode, whatever, 15, 16, 17, with Matt Cody. I got to hear about his oil and gas and energy, especially again national security, southern border stuff, But perhaps have Matt Cody and James McCormick on in a standalone episode there, Val. And I'm sensing there are going to be a lot more standalone episodes based on who we even talked to today. Amazing, amazing stuff. So I thank Chris, Rhea. I thank Gordon Kesler. Gordon Kesler. I encourage people to go to it's his website or Amazon to peek at his books. They're amazing. They're amazing value. You've read them all. About the oil industry spies up in Alberta. It was amazing. So I will finally sign off. Say goodbye to you, Val. I'll let you say the final extra here. But as I always finish with, and I've mentioned earlier today, my sign off always is: wake up in kindergarten every day. There's so much to learn and so little time, because before you know it, you're in grade 1. So there you go, Val.
Secrets from the Inside, episode 0014. This is a Tucker Carlson Pep Rally. God, family, freedom, and Alberta 51 USA. What a show it's been. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to visit. You can listen to this episode on replay on Greg Meakin's YouTube channel. That's at Greg Meakin.